we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Night number 2 of this week. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. And you know what? Tonight's a hair down kind of night. Yeah, it is. It's a hair down kind of night. I'm tired of it always being up. How y'all doing? Dave Scott here. And once again, thank you for joining us on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to Florida tonight. We're not talking to Florida man, but the man from Florida, Mark Muncy, author, into everything weird, strange, legendary, haunting, ghostly, cryptid. You name it, he's into it, and he's writing about it at Eerie, Florida. Dirty Filth is here with the cartoons, and so are you in the chat room. Let's get right to roll call here. Race fan in the gold medal position. Awesome Ann B taking home the silver. Jeffrey DeRuin with a bronze medal tonight. Hi, Les Paul Holland, Samantha Hazelwood Gray, Roy Boy, and Gong Show. How y'all doing? Thank you for joining us. And who else do we got here? A Muse is here. A Muse will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Okay, continuing on. We got D. Cohen, Nightmare, Donna Spencer, Magneticus, and Michael Fontaine. Rui from Portugal, welcome back. John Hinoyosa, and Lisa C., and Kathy Evans, and Amy Vegas. Oh, yes, Amy Vegas O will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio. To the right of the studio. Troy Kreitz, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us tonight. Pam Smith, good to see you. NoCal, Jessica McCreary, thanks for coming on in. James Weston, thank you for joining us. Hi, Jenny, nice to see you. Black Dragon, one of our favorite veterans who listens to this show nightly. We love our veterans around here. Thank you, former Marine Black Dragon, for your awesome service. We appreciate it. Continuing on with roll call. Who do we have next? Well, let's take a look. Huckleberry Charles, Pam Smith, and Mama Susan. Good to see you all. Brown Dwarf, how you doing, man? And who else is here? Scrolling on down, we have Sharon Guy. Nice to have you back. And let's go. There's Awesome Ann Palmer. Alien Critter. Noble Patrick, how you doing, buddy? And there's Bigfoot Michigan Rob. By the way, I will be on Bigfoot Michigan Rob's YouTube channel with him tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. Pacific to noon Pacific. So that's noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. And so make sure you go check out Bigfoot Michigan Rob's channel. Hit subscribe while you're there as well. And I want to see as many of you there listening to me on the other side of the microphone tomorrow. Boo Radley, Ozzy, oi, oi to you. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And continuing on. Oh, there he is, everyone. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived. The Doug Shelby. Yeah, it's fun. Rolls off the tongue well. Moving on, let's see who else is joining us here. Well, let's see. We have Dirty Filth. Thank you for coming in the chat room. And boy, you guys were chatting quite a bit here. Zed Hutt, nice to see you. Barry Browning, Night Rot, welcome to SOR Chat. As we got to start the radio side of this show. There we go. And who else is here? Alien Critter. Brian and Barry Browning, nice to have you here. Anonymous Express, hey Tim, how you doing? Hey Super Lou from Unidentified Celebrity Review. This man really does wear a cape every time he broadcasts. Phil the Stalker, Stephen Edmond, AZ Man, how are you? Jeanette Sanchez, nice to see you. Tracy Gale, nice to see you. Michael Godbold, good to have you back. Deborah Lucas, thanks for coming on in. Mr. Lurksalon, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Doc from Wyoming, it's been a while. Von Patrick, Zenzabil, how you doing, guys? Terry Hall, how you doing? Jose Maguina, thanks for coming on in. Tombstone, always a pleasure to have you here. Vash the Impaler, good to have you back, buddy. And yeah, we got some time here. We got like 20 seconds. I may finish it here. Let's see who else is here. Digger Dog, good to have you here. Gary Rousset, nice to see you. And let's see here. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got aliens. And literally, people, I got to shut it down right there. But you know what? Let's rock. Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We're going to have a great show for you guys tonight, starting off with Florida man Mark Muncy, the author, telling us about how spooky and weird the state of Florida really is. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller is back with another spooky story for us. And Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio will be joining us, taking on the Cryptid Report. Shirky Poo, of course, has the news. All right. Mark Muncy is the author of the best-selling Eerie Florida book series from the History Press. He has studied and written about legendary beasts, hauntings, and dark history for well over 30 years. He is a contributor to many documentaries and TV series with his new book, Eerie Appalachia, which we're actually going to bring him back next month to talk about. Mark is returning to his roots as he redives into the dark legends of the oldest mountain range in the world. But tonight, it's all about Florida. Florida is weird and strange enough as it is. Did he really have to go to the Appalachian Mountains to find more strangeness? I don't know, but I'm pretty excited about this, and I know Mark is excited to get on the air with us, so let's not stall any further. Mark Muncy, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Fantastic, Dave. It's an honor to be on the show. I've been a listener for some time, so this is great.
I'm excited to have you here, and your energy is absolutely contagious. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat here. But thank you so much for taking the time out for our audience for the next couple of hours here. Mark, you know, you've been in Florida for well over 30 years now. Did you ever see yourself as a published author of books that are of weird and strange topics?
Well, I started out, in high school as a writer. A little bit. I wrote some fantasy and some sci-fi, and then when I needed to pay the bills, I actually did some ghostwriting, but for a couple of those old men's adventure series back in the 80s. But then I became a dad, and and it was like, oh no, this $500 a book isn't going to cover things, so I immediately went the other direction. But I still had that love of creepy, still had that love of unusual stuff. So I started really getting into it, and that was when we did our own little haunted house down here in St. Pete. I couldn't afford to take my kids to the big theme park haunted houses, so we put on our own. And we did a little twist on it. It was called Hellview Cemetery, and it was based on local lore and legends of Tampa Bay. So we were looking for the lost cemeteries of Tampa Bay. Tampa has this great story. Settlers moved in, they'd build these beautiful little settlements, and then these things like tropical storms or the natives or whatever would come through and scare them all away, and then the buildings would go away, and then the next round of settlers would move in and go, oh wow, look at all this flat land, we'll build this this new town. And what they were building on were these old settlements which had family graveyards and all this other stuff. So over the years, people would dig them up, and every once in a while, whenever they put up another building, they go, oh, there's the old Watson family graveyard. When they put up the big dome downtown St. Pete for Tropicana Field, they found 4 of them. So that had been under other buildings. So this is so we were like, let's base this all on legends. And so we kept grabbing stories. So instead of having a werewolf jump out at you at the haunted house, we'd had the skunk ape jump out at you. And I kept collecting these stories, and we did that for almost 20 years. And then the city said, hey, you have 10,000 people a weekend walking through your backyard for charity. We know it's a good cause, but that's a lot of people walking through your backyard. So they shut us down, and I had this stack of stories, and I'm like, you know what? My kids are grown now. I can start doing little history dives and digging into these things. And that's what I did. We started doing that. We published a book. We had already posted the stories on our website for years. And we had quite a bit of following, but that's when History Press reached out and said, hey, we want to make this a book. And so we did. And that's how it all started.
Did you ever have your own experiences growing up that led you to these topics, or was it always about curiosity and the strangeness that attracted you?
Oh no, I had a couple experiences as a youth, and that is why it always drew me to the strange and unusual. The first was my first memory as a child was in our house in Dayton, Ohio, and I don't remember much about it, but I do remember my bedroom was on the second floor, and there was a stairway in my bedroom up to the attic, and a door up there. And I remember being up those stairs, going into the attic, and seeing some sort of shadow figure with blazing red eyes. I still get goosebumps when I talk about this. And it stared at me and ran towards me. And then the next thing I remember is my mother carrying me to bed and saying, it's okay, it's okay. And that's one of my very few memories of that house at all. So I was before we left that house when I was like 4 or 5. So that's, was it a nightmare that I remembered? No, I think it was something scary. It haunted me for years, literally. And when my family had land in Kentucky, the back hills of Kentucky, and we would go there every weekend, even when we moved to Charleston, West Virginia. We would still spend the weekends at our farmland in Kentucky, and that has its own cryptid. But I didn't know that. I just knew it was a little folklore story, the family beast, a holler monster. And as I grew up, I kept hearing this weird story about this creature, and I didn't think anything of it. And then as I got older, sure enough, I had a strange encounter with something that I can't explain that fit the description of the family monster. And that was the bench leg of Gobel Ridge. It has the worst name ever, but we weren't really good at naming things, and Florida's even worse at naming things. So that always was there. What did I see? What was that unusual thing? Was it a ghost? Was it a creature? And so that's always been there. And that's why they've always fascinated me. And of course, around then was the In Search of explosion of the late 70s, and then Star Wars comes out, and then The Exorcist, and it's from then on it was horror, sci-fi, and monsters, and any way I could. So
I want to ask you, as we shift the focus to Florida here, Florida takes a pretty bad rap with Florida man, Florida woman, people making a lot of fun. I mean, some of the stories, I'll be honest with you, every night we try and find a Florida man or Florida woman story. It's fun. It's amazing.
They're great.
You know, they are.
Yep.
But, you know, I want to ask you, I mean, but there's so much more about Florida in the weird and strange. I mean, from pirate ships way back in the day to the Coral Castle, Robert the Doll, the skunk apes, and the Florida Panthers, which are said to be non-existent anymore. I mean, plus all the ghosts and hauntings that are going around, you know, UFOs that are supposed to be flying over the bays. I mean, and on the south, you have the tip of the Bermuda Triangle at Miami. I mean, there's a lot of weird things going on there, Mark. I mean, your hands must be full.
Well, 3 books full so far, and a 4th one on the way. So, you know, it starts, you know, like you said, it's one of those, people think of Florida as beaches or theme parks, right? That's all people think of when they think of Florida when they're not from Florida. And the way I like to describe it is, look at Florida from space at night. And, you know, like from the space station or from, you know, any of the, you know, shuttles back then and all that. They always take these pictures of this, you know, of the United States at night, and they, particularly Florida, because that's where they all just flew away from. And you look down at it, and it's all these bright lights along the coast. You know, it's the beaches. That's where all the tourists are. And then you got these super bright lights in little specks around that, and that's the big cities, the Jacksonvilles, the Tampas, the Miamis, the Fort Lauderdales, the cities that support the beaches. And then you go a little further in, and it's, the lights are still there. They're still pretty bright. They're getting a little sparser, but that's, you know, all the suburbs and all the growth, the sprawl, as we call it, that's supporting those cities, because that's what we do. We all flat land. We got to do this. But then you go a little further in, and it gets really dark really fast. And there are big patches of dark, you know, and then you got the heart in the center. That's where Disney built. So of course that's all blown up and big and bright, but those dark spots are still there, and they look like kind of ventricles of the heart. And you've got the Everglades down at the bottom, which, you know, has more people disappear there than almost anywhere else in the world. And then you've got the Green Swamp. You've got the Ocala National Forest. You've got Tate's Hell, the Withlacoochee Forest, and there's even a bunch of forests up in the Panhandle that all have, you know, really dark and are just nothing there. You go there and you wouldn't realize you're in Florida. You're in some dark, you know, swamp in the Everglades or the Green Swamp. Hey, it's rightfully named, but a lot of it's just old live oak scrubland and all that. It could be forests anywhere, and that's why we have so many Sasquatch sightings. Or is Florida, like, you learn real quick, Florida loves to rename things, so we can't have nice things, so we call them the skunk ape. Yeah, and then but that's, you know, we've got all these other crazy stories and crazy creatures, and of course UFOs galore. Yeah, and this goes all the way back to, you know, when we were first settling this place, but it also goes back prior to the native tribes. They have their stories. When the Spanish came, you know, we had conquistadors marching up and down, and half our cities are named after them, even though they wiped out people and committed all these acts of atrocities. We've got counties named after these guys. It's like, great, thanks. You know, and then the Civil War came, and we were the South's breadbasket because we were the only place that wasn't getting burned. But yet the Union held a lot of the ports and, you know, kept it from going places. So it was a hotly contested state for that. Even though we didn't have many battles, the ones we had were pretty colorful and pretty crazy. It's you know, it's a crazy place. So, and the Florida man has been around a lot longer than most people realize. You know, it just and he will be here till we're all long gone.
Very much understanding of what is happening down there with the weird and strange. For you, as you started looking at all of these subjects of what to do, what to cover, where to start with these legends, where did you start?
I started with the legend that was near here in our town of St. Petersburg, Florida. There was this weird legend. As I was collecting these stories for the haunted house, the one name that kept coming up was Mini Lights. And it was, don't go out at night or Mini Lights will get you. Well, what's Mini Lights? And I start looking into it, and it was, oh, if you say Mini Lights 3 times, these green little balls of light will chase you. okay, well, that's kind of an interesting story. Why is everybody so afraid of that? But then I discovered that was, if you heard that story on the north side of town, that's what you heard. If you went to the south side of town and you started asking about mini lights, people gave me a completely different attitude. They were like, don't go messing with mini lights. You don't talk about mini lights. Oh, okay. It was like a whole different ball game. And I was like, why is it so different? And they were like, don't go messing with mini lights, or the Gator Boys will get you. So it wasn't lights. Now it was the Gator Boys. What are the Gator Boys? And suddenly I had one guy call me and he said, no, it's not mini lights. It's Mini Lightning. She's the voodoo queen of St. Petersburg. And she controls the storms. Why we have so many lightnings? Why are teams the Tampa Bay Lightning? We are the lightning capital of the world here in Tampa Bay. And it's Mini Lightning. And she hates Marie Laveau in New Orleans. So that's why she steers all the hurricanes up to New Orleans so they don't hit Tampa Bay. And then her Gator Boys will come and get your children if you cross her or you're out too late. So don't let the kids stay out later. The Gator Boys will get you. So that was very interesting. So we start doing more research. It's like, well, who is this? And we find this. There was a fire in Gibsonton, which is across the bay, at a boarding house. The lady was a Mennonite, and she allowed circus performers to stay at her boarding house. So that may have been it. Mennonite mini lights, that kind of fits. And Gator Boys maybe was some circus performers with a skin condition or something. That was kind of what we were leaning towards. But then we were researching a completely different story, and at the St. Pete History Museum, and the answer literally fell out of a book. It was a fan, a little hand fan that tourists would hold to cool themselves off. And on that fan was an ad for one of the alligator farms that were here in St. Petersburg. Now, everybody knows the alligator farms down in the Everglades, down in Miami, that area now. Well, St. Pete was the capital of that in the 1930s. And they're not here anymore, but back then they had one. And this one on its fan had two little children being chased by alligators. And it was two African-American kids, and it was called Gator Bait. And this is how they entertained the tourists, was they would go out, kidnap small children from the south side of town, and throw them in with the alligators. And that's why it was beware of mini lights. It was beware of the men with lights. The Gator Boys will get you and take your children. And so that's one of those where the legend was one thing, but the truth was so much scarier. And that's why that really was like, okay, now we know how to do these stories. Now we know how to, dig into them. Let's find the truth behind them. And some of them are really, that where the history is scarier than the monster. But then others, the monsters are unexplainable and unusual. And so, I was very happy when we would stumble on a new cryptid or something that hadn't been written of much, something that had kind of been lost to antiquity. And that reminded me of my holler monster up in Appalachia. These were things that had not traveled far, and I was glad to bring them back to life. And that's why I love doing what we do.
The legends of Florida really stick out for me. And one of the couple of big ones that actually does is Robert the Doll. Now, this is a little doll in a sailor's outfit that is sitting in a museum that is said to go on adventures at night, is said to torture people if they don't ask permission to take his photograph, and everything from health issues to car accidents to being fired from jobs to, losing relationships. Tell us a little bit, as we got about 5 minutes to go here before the break. Let's start off with Robert the Doll.
Oh man, we're starting with setting the bar pretty high here. Yeah, Robert was the childhood toy. I'll try to do it in 5 minutes. Of Robert Jean Otto, who was a kid in Key West, and they were rich family. And Robert, there's all these legends that he was made by a voodoo queen and all this other stuff. No, it was a doll from the Steiff Company, the same company that made the teddy bear famous back in the day. But he was very valuable. He was one of a kind. There was, that we think. And he was brought home and he was given to this kid, and the kid loved him. It's about 3 foot tall, so it's about the same size little kid. They could share clothes, they could do all this. This is the my little buddy of his day, and they did everything together. But weird things started happening. The servants were complaining. They said stuff's breaking, and and the kids would talking to the doll, and the doll was talking back in a different name. So his parents come to him and say, Robert, you got to stop doing this. And he goes, oh, no. I'm changing my name to Gene because the doll is Robert. Robert wants that name now, and we don't want any more confusion. So, modern day, we would have given that kid some Ritalin and we probably wouldn't have this story. But, now, thankfully that didn't happen. And because Robert and Gene were inseparable still. Unusual things kept happening. He grew up and kept the doll, then moved away, and then came back years later with his new wife. And he was so happy to find his doll was still there. Now, there were all these sightings of the doll moving around while he was gone. The parents had locked it in this turret room of what's called now the artist's house, but it was the Otto house. And people kept having all these weird stories about the doll. But then when Gene came back and Otto came, with him, they would go, Gene and Robert, they would go out to dinner, and there would always be an extra place setting for Robert. But his wife sadly had to wait 5 minutes before she could enter a restaurant because Gene and Robert had to make their entrance first. Anyway, he passes away. The wife doesn't want anything else to do with the doll. She locks it in the attic. She sells the house. Eventually another family move in, and then they find the doll, and they know they've got the talking piece of the town. So they try showing it off. And then eventually that lady just can't handle it anymore. All the weird things going on. And she gives it to a museum called the Fort East Morella Museum. She's like, this is Robert the doll, take it. And they don't really know what to do with him. So they just keep him in the back room for a while. But Robert wants to be seen. Robert wants to be heard. So they start realizing they have to display him. And then they quickly learn Robert has rules. Robert's like gremlins. You got to follow the rules when you deal with Robert. First thing is, you're always polite to Robert. You never insult him. You always introduce yourself. Second, never take his photo without permission. That's where we've learned all these bad things happening to people. If you break one of these rules, bad things happen. Third rule, always say goodbye to Robert. Break that connection. Because if you don't break that connection, he can stay with you. And that's where the other problems arise. But then the last rule is if you screwed up 1 through 3, you can write him a letter and apologize and say, hey, Robert, I'm sorry. Please take off your curse. And that seems to work. And now, if you don't believe any of this, and this sounds like insane, go down to Key West. They literally get hundreds of letters a month of people who broke his rules and are begging for Robert to remove their curse. And I love spending the days just reading the letters because those are amazing. My favorites is Dear Sir Robert, like he was making up right off the bat. I'm sorry I called your leather face stupid. Leather is actually very nice and you are handsome. Please remove your curse. We get the message. Please fix my eye, my Xbox, and my marriage. And I love that he put them in that order. I thought that was just perfect. So I did a documentary recently on Robert the Doll. Should be on Discovery soon. And in that, we actually got to take Robert the Doll back home to the artist's house for the first time in 30 years. And that was pretty spectacular.
Mark, let's continue with Robert the Doll because you have your own weird doll that you have actually introduced to Robert.
Yes.
And we got to learn about that as well. So you sit back, take a break here. We're in for a great night of radio tonight about weird, strange legends and occurrences in the beautiful state of Florida. Our guest tonight, author Mark Muncy. His website, eerieflorida.com. You can get his books there. Check it on out. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Stay tuned. Second half hour is next. Fantastic start. Fantastic start.
Starting with Robert. That's always a good one.
Well, we might as well just kick it into gear right off the bat, right?
Yeah, I gotta set the bar. No, there was we just did that documentary, and it should be airing soon. It got screwed up with that whole Discovery HBO merger, but should be on soon. So
well, we got just north of me. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mandy the Haunted Doll.
I have not.
Well, according to David Weatherly and Ross Allison, she is one of the 10 most haunted, along with Robert, in the world. And she almost killed my friend Merle.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A deadly doll.
Yeah. And when I saw her, and I haven't seen her since 2018, but when I first saw her in 2015, she really didn't do anything to me, but she almost got Merle. She almost got Merle. And they have this. She's in a museum. She's in a curio cabinet. She got a little knitted lamb that sits with her. And
like lion.
Yeah, except they put that in the curio cabinet for her. They thinking it might calm her down a little bit. And not like Robert, where he just went and found his own. Yeah. That still bugs me. Still bugs me.
There was some stories I'll share from the guy who is Robert's keeper, David Sloan. You should have him on sometime. He's awesome. But he, whenever Robert has to bug out for hurricanes, Sloan's the one who has the special bunker for him and all that. We were talking one day and we was talking about this, this is the most valuable doll in the world, in some cases. And it's one day he came into work, they'd locked him in the museum that night, after a ghost tour. And then the next morning, Robert is sitting outside the museum with sand on his feet, like he'd been for a walk on the beach. So, just sitting outside, no protection, no guards.
That creeps me out.
Yep.
I mean, Robert has to be, insurance-wise, 7 figures, maybe 8. Yeah, maybe probably. 8 figures.
Probably. I was sad a lot of the letters got lost in Hurricane Irma, so some of the older ones are gone. So,
I mean, do you think though that if somebody ever stole Robert, that Robert might actually kill them?
Oh yeah. I mean, you get that weird vibe down there with him that is crazy. And then when we brought him into the artist house, I can't say much until it airs because I'm under NDAs.
Yeah, there's NDA.
But there's a scene that's I was there for, and I'm still,
oh yeah,
shaky a little bit. So
my goodness,
yeah,
bear with me here.
I can't say all that happened, but something happened.
We're on. I'm scared shitless right now, to be honest, because I opened my window in order to cool it off in here a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm always scared that just one time, there's going to be a bear that sticks his nose in and just, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
If you talk bad about Robert,
if you talk bad about Robert, that might happen. So that's why we got to be nice.
Oh, I'm not talking bad about Robert at all.
Yeah, he's
not
awesome.
Talking bad about him. Yeah. David Weatherly actually, I may or may not have a fear. I used to have a fear of gnomes. Now you'll see I have gnomes around me. But David Weatherly actually called me privately one day and said, "Dude, we need to talk about your fear of gnomes. You got to get over this." And I'm like, well, I don't really like the things, man. They freak me out. He goes, I know. He goes, but Dave, he goes, trust me on this. The more bad energy you put out to the gnomes, the more they're going to react.
Let's make sure you ask me about Bach Tower. Okay. I'll give you a gnome story from Florida.
Buck Tower?
Bach Tower. B-O-K Tower.
Oh, okay. Hey,
say, hey, I've got some gnomes, and you might have a Florida story. Just tell me that, when you're ready to talk about that.
And are you up to date on the Coral Castle too?
Yeah.
All right.
Been,
I want
just
I
recently.
want you know what? That has been for us on this show the most my one of my most wanted topics, and
Okay.
finding someone to talk about it in depth
Oh yeah.
has been damn near impossible for us.
Happy
All
to.
right, here we go. Thank you, Cat Chaser and Vaughn, for the super chats. Let's do it right now. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Yeah, we're going to freak you out tonight with Eerie, Florida, and I am looking forward to it. I want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Mark Muncy, author of numerous weird books that can be found on his website, Eerie, Florida. And I'm going to tell you right now, Mark and I have known each other a grand total of about an hour and a half. And you know what? I'm already bringing him back next month to talk about his new book that's out about the Eerie Appalachian Mountains, and it's about Mothman and Indrid Cold and all sorts of things. We need to talk about that heading into the fall and Halloween season. So Mark is going to be back here very, very soon. But tonight, it's all about Florida. And right before the break, we were talking about Robert the Doll. And you just did a television show in regards to Robert the Doll. You can't get into that because it hasn't aired yet. And there's all sorts of non-disclosure agreements that go along with that type of footage. And, but there's some strange stories about Robert the Doll out there that just absolutely scare people to death.
Yeah, before they had put him, on display at the museum, they kept him in a back room, and then people kept coming to see him when they found out that they had them. So they would arrange meetings to see the doll, and they would take him out of his case, and then there were times they'd open the case and he'd be gone, and they'd be like, "Where's the doll? This is and they but they didn't know where he was, what the heck was going on. And they would find it in some random room, something, just out of the blue, a little while later. One of the most famous in Key West, you got to remember, is this, it's a small town. I mean, it's famous. It's Key West. It's an island, but word gets around fast if things are going on. And one of the things that was happening there was they had some piping issues, because this is an old Civil War fort turned into a museum. It's the Fort East Morella Museum. And they had some plumbing issues, so they called a plumber. And the plumber came in, he starts working on the pipes, and suddenly he turns around and the doll is standing right behind him. And he refuses to work on this project. They were literally walks out, done. And then he calls every other plumber in town and says, "Don't go there. That doll is creepy and will kill you," and all this other stuff. So they had to go all the way to Miami, which is a long, long way, to get another plumber down there to finish the piping. And that was about the time they realized, okay, Robert wants to be seen. Robert is definitely trying to reach out. And that's when they made the display for him, the initial display. And now he's in his glass case, and you can go visit him. You can also go stay at the artist's house, which is now a bed and breakfast, just on the other side of Key West. And you can stay in Robert's room, the turret that he used to stay in with Gene. And you can look out the same windows Robert looked out. That house has some paranormal stuff all over it. It's we were there with several paranormal teams. They collected EVPs, they collected unusual readings. It's one of the things I like to tell people is, like, I am not a parapsychologist. I am not a Bigfoot hunter. I am not a UFOologist, but I go with Bigfoot hunting teams, parapsychology teams, ghost hunters, UFO hunters. And I go on these expeditions and get their story. I'm more, some people call me like a parajournalist, but I like to think of myself as like a journalist slash folklorist because I do like digging into the history and the folklore behind it. But Robert's crazy. We took our wonderful mascot from our old cemetery there, Clem. He's a little torso that we had was made out of latex. We had in the haunt for years, and we used him as he was like our traveling, photo op, and we would bring him everywhere. And we brought him to visit Robert, and that was kind of magical. There was a moment there between those two. So we introduced him, say, "Hey, Robert, this is Clem. He's our doll." And if you guys want to say anything, do anything. So, and that was fun. A few years later, we had an Annabelle replica, a nice little Raggedy Ann, and we brought that down to him because we figured, hey, Robert would probably want to meet Annabelle. And that was another encounter that went over really well. And that one, we had a psychic medium with us, and she got overwhelmed the minute she walked in the room. And then when we introduced Annabelle, she left. And she refuses to talk to me to this day. So something happened there. So wasn't the real Annabelle, although I have seen the real Annabelle a couple times. Back when I was a kid, I drove up to the Warren's house. So, that was back then. So.
My goodness. Now, you have introduced your own doll. Now, for our radio listeners, you can't see this, obviously, because you're listening to us. But right behind Mark is this really creepy doll sitting on a chair behind him. It looks like a burnt skeleton. Tell us about this doll. And you actually introduced this doll to your good friend Robert as well.
Yep. It was one of those things. That doll was made for Hellview Cemetery. It was made by Stiltby Studios, the great Dan, and I can't remember his last name right now. He's going to kill me, but he runs Dark Hour Haunted House in Texas now. But he was here in Florida at the time, and we managed to commission this piece for him. And it was just a zombie display we had done for our Voodoo Queen when we brought in, mini lightning to our haunted house. So, that was how we would do things like that. So he's been with us a long time, at least 20 years. So, and he keeps getting better. We took him to the Fountain of Youth over in St. Augustine, and it took a couple thousand years off of him. I think he looks great. So
looks like you partied him a little too hard, to be honest.
What's funny is the shirt actually has kind of a paranormal story that he wears. There was a time I was wearing that shirt, and we were dealing with some sort of paranormal event, and there was a team that was going into a location, and I was with them, and we walked into the room where the activity was, and there was a child's bed, and there was a smoke in the room. It was like a haze. This is an abandoned house. And I didn't, we're like, why is there this haze, this fog in this one room? And you see like swirling shapes. And I swear to this day, I thought it looked like there was this shadowy figure and it was like pulling on gloves. And I was like, ooh, somebody's about to kick our butt, and they were like, oh, we got to go in there. And I was like, okay. And I'm taking notes and they go in with the camera. And as they're looking at one thing, I feel this hand grab my chest and push, and I fell over into a doorway. And I was like, wow, what was that? And they were all panicking and they're all running around, figured I tripped or something. And I was like, no, something pushed me. And then when we got up, the shirt had the rip that's still right here. It's gotten worse over the years because, once you rip a shirt, it rips a lot easier, especially over 20 years. And being in a haunted house, on top of it. But that was where their initial rips for that shirt came. So I kept it as a trophy, and it only felt right that Clem should wear it. So
I love the name Clem. Love the name. I want to, we got so many stories and there's so little time here with you tonight, even though we have you for another hour and 15 minutes here. But I want to switch stories here to the Bach Tower. And
okay.
During the break, I had mentioned to you that I used to have a real fear of gnomes, but now inside my studio, I got about 7 or 8 gnomes surrounding me here, and I love them. I I'm just fascinated by them. But do you believe there's real gnomes running around?
Well, this story came to us during the haunted house days. How I got these stories is I had a little website. It was to date it. It was a GeoCities website, and then our email address was an AOL address. So that'll tell you how old this was. But you could submit your stories at the link. So you basically said, we said, hey, if you got a ghost story or a monster story, hit here. And I got this email from a lady who said in the 1940s, she grew up near Bach Tower, which is in Lake Wales, which is, again, one of those kind of dark spots in the middle of Florida. It's one of the highest spots in Florida at a whopping 223 feet above sea level. I think Space Mountain's bigger than that. And this guy at the time had built a giant tower there. He was trying to make it his own little personal Garden of Eden. And so it's a big bell tower. And around there is a bunch of orange groves. Famously, just a couple miles from there is another infamous location called Spook Hill, which is one of those gravity hills that you go down, and you go down this little hill, and then there's this big hill, and you get down to the bottom of the little hill, and suddenly you back up the little hill when you put your car in neutral. So this whole town kind of embraces the weird. The elementary school there is Spook Hill Elementary. And Casper the Friendly Ghost is their mascot. So anyway, Bach Tower, this letter said, hey, I grew up in this orange grove, and I don't know much about it.
This device disconnected here, and we will just wait for Mark to get back on here. The beauty of talking the weird and strange every now and again is literally you never know what's going to happen. So we're going to blame this one on the paranormal. Well, of course, it cannot be something like phone failure, electric current failure, battery failure, or anything like that. That's just not how it goes. Not with what we do. No. Maybe he was abducted by aliens. I'm not too sure. But he was just about to get into a story about gnomes at Bach Tower down in Florida. I can't wait for him to get back. What we're going to do is we're going to kick him from the studio and then hopefully bring him back in, because maybe that's what he needs. And I'm telling you, what is going on down there? Seriously, what is going on down there with the weird and strange? What do you think's causing it? Is it the weather? The weather patterns? I mean, you got to realize Florida has a big population, and they're all like dirty filth. Our artists. They really are. They're quirky down there, And I'm telling you, this is going to be great when Mark comes back. Mark Muncy is who we're talking about. I mean, you think of everything in Florida that's weird. No, not just the people. Coral Castle. There's gnomes. There's, Robert the Doll, which he was talking about. Everything in between. Lots of monsters. You go in the water. Everything wants to kill you there. From the snakeheads to the crocodiles and the alligators. Even the iguanas want a piece of you. At least they'll give you salmonella. Literally, there are people in Florida every year, believe it or not, that when they get their little cold snap, the iguanas freeze in the trees, and then their bodies become so heavy that they fall out of trees and they'll nail people. It's like getting hit in the head with a brick when they fall from the trees with terminal velocity. And next thing you know, people are getting killed by falling iguanas in the trees. It's Florida. That's all you got to know. We got Mark back now.
I'm back. Happened? I'm sorry. It was the gnomes.
That's what I thought.
Robert, sorry, I had to write a quick apology letter to Robert. That was the problem. So we forgot to ask his permission to talk about him. That was the problem. So Robert, we're sorry. It won't happen again. But anyway, the gnome story, where I was, I forgot. But anyway, this lady lives in this farm. I don't know how much time I got left.
We got lots of time. We got like 9
right.
minutes before the break.
All right, good. So she lives in this farm in the 40s, and she said something weird happened. In the shadow of Bach Tower, she's on the orange grove, and they notice all the oranges are starting disappearing from the grove. Someone's stealing their oranges. Could be fruit rats, could be anything. So they set up traps. And what they caught was not what they expected. What they caught was a little naked man, about 6 inches, 7 inches tall, they said, covered in hair. So it wasn't a baby or anything. And he was screaming at them in a language they couldn't understand. And they didn't know what to do. So they call the police, and the police come out, and they're like, this guy isn't stealing all your fruit. There's just one little guy, it's stealing all the oranges. So they kicked him out.
Do you have like a time bomb going off, a ticker?
No, not that I know of.
There is something behind you on the video that I can see flickering.
I don't know.
That is so strange. It just started up.
Interesting. I do not know. Oh, it might be. I know what it is. Hang on.
Okay, just continue on. I mean, that's okay.
I can keep continuing. There we go. How's that? I realized what it was. It was the ceiling fan, the light behind the ceiling fan. So I debunked that.
I hate to tell you, but the tickering is still going on.
Is it? Wow. Okay.
Oh, it's now stopped. This is getting awesomely weird.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. That's a first. Well, I don't normally do these talks this late, so this could be something causing. We are in the witching hour. Anyway, the police let him go. Basically, this guy isn't stealing your fruit. But then it keeps happening, and they keep leaving more traps, and they catch him again. And this time they demand the police talk to him because they catch him with the fruit. He's got an orange as big as him. So the police put him in an orange crate because handcuffs aren't going to work on this guy. They take him to the police station. Now that was their mistake, because what happens is the next day, while they're trying to translate this guy, they're trying to find translators to figure out what the hell his language he is. They're thinking he might be something escaped from Ringling or something from Ripley's, or something. They knew Tom Thumb and other stuff like that. They'd seen circus performers in the area. They all wintered down here. So that's what they thought they had. But what happened is at the farm, the lady said they were getting pelted with rocks and stones and sticks from all over. And then when they went outside, there were dozens of these little guys screaming at them for their lost friend. So they called the police again. The police come back, and the police don't know what to do with this. So they let him go again and just say, sorry, this isn't our problem, and leave. And what happens is one of the farm hands says, oh, these are red caps. These are fae. These are fairies from the old world, and you've upset them now. The only way you're going to be able to do this is to get a special stone from Ireland that's blessed by a priest. Now, this is 1940s. World War II has just ended, but the family sends to Ireland for a special blessed stone. They get it, it's shipped to the property, and they never have a problem again. So now I just thought it was this fun story. So we always put a gnome in the haunted house. When I started doing Eerie, Florida, I'm like, I've got to do this story, but I only have this one lady's report. And sadly, she'd passed on. That was like 20 years prior when I had gotten that original story. So I'm like, what do I do? How am I going to prove this? I mean, this is just this wild, wacky story. So I reached out on this new thing called Facebook, and and said, hey, I went into one of those groups. You grew up on Lake Wales when, and I said, hey, does anybody remember a weird thing about a small person being arrested, in the 40s, a circus performer maybe? And sure enough, a civilian worker for the Lake Wales Police Department, long retired, remembered it. And so he told us that he recalled them bringing him in the orange crate. So, and he gave us a description of the man. So my lovely wife, Carrie, who illustrates all our monsters and ghosts, because they usually don't pose for anything but blurry photos, she brought him to life. And so we had our verification. And that's why we went with the story. And now since I've talked to several, Seminole tribe members who talk about the early days in that area, the natives of that area dealt with them and would, trade with them. And they had a tribe of little people, they called them the Lake Men, and they would trade with them. And they were all supposed to be very, very small. So your gnomes, we're here. So.
Wow. Yeah. Do you attest the gnomes to be the same as the little people that many Nations people talk about, or completely different?
It depends on the area. I think, like in, some of the further north, we've got the moon-eyed people and some other things like that. So this is some crazy stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's like euphemisms, but these are translations. So the translations can be all kinds of, we don't know 100% what these words mean. We think they mean this. And that's because somebody who kind of understood their language would do it. And a lot of these languages were lost. So, and the Seminole tribe was telling, member was telling me about these legends. And even he goes, that predates our tribe. They were the Seminole tribe was basically amalgamated when they shoved all the Indians down to Florida, because Florida was full of swampland and nobody wanted it. So let's send them all down there. And then suddenly, Florida's great. It's, it's hot all the time. It never snows and you can grow things there. Well, we learned we couldn't grow a lot down there, but so then that's when they kicked them onto the swamps, and then they sent the rest out west. So, and the Seminoles were, previously warring tribes would band together and form their own tribe. And that's how the Seminoles were born. So, and that's, and it's fascinating to me, how all these things, just form, and, and that's how we get most of the names of everything here in Florida. So.
Very true. Very true. We got a couple minutes left here, and when we come back from the break, we're going to get into the Coral Castle. But for you, looking at these gnomes and Robert the Doll and haunted history and everything that goes along with that, have you noticed any patterns regarding these creatures and their habits?
They like I said, they tend to be minding their own business, and then Florida expands into a new area. And that's when the crap hits the wall. It's, suddenly they become more vicious. They become more violent. That's one of the things about the Florida monsters. Like our sea monster was, again, we can't have nice things, so we had to rename him. The St. John's River monster. And he would go up and down the river, and he was but the thing is, he was the color of boiled shrimp. So he was bright pink. And he almost sank a steamship at one point in the 1800s. And so what does Florida call him? Not the Beast of St. John's. We call him Pinky the sea monster. And he's our Nessie. And sure enough, Pinky almost sank a steamship because it got into his, mating grounds, possibly something like that, near Lake Majority, where it goes out into the Atlantic. And so that's kind of, that's what we find with these stories is like the skunk ape sightings start getting more and more plentiful as the roads go into the Ocala National Forest. As the houses start building in Mayaca, that's when we get that great picture that lady took of the silverback skunk ape. Again, they just built that house a few years prior. So now we're in their territory. You mentioned the Florida Panthers. They were disappearing, and now they're coming back in a vengeance, but they've moved to a different, wildlife corridor. And that's why it's so important we try to protect the wildlife corridors to protect what we've got. So.
Oh, I hear you there. And I once again, I'm very excited in the next half hour to talk about the Coral Castle. We used to hear about this story a lot in the early 2000s, and it's kind of died off since then for about the last 10, 15 years. But I mean, I'll tell you, this Coral Castle, if you don't know the story, our guest, Mark Muncy, is going to break it all down for you and what is happening right up to today. Imagine one man moving hundreds of tons of coral with no electronics, and by himself at an elderly age. Spaced Out Radio continues with Hour 2 next. That hour was way too quick.
Yeah, sorry about the 5 minutes technical difficulties.
Hey, I know how to talk. To talk.
It's like you're a radio host or something.
I know, right? I'm going to take a quick break here. We're going to turn over this area to, we'll leave your microphone on, Mark, and if you want to mute it, you can. We're going to turn this over to Dirty Filth here so we can kind of see what is going on in his world with his heart tonight. So, Filth, take it away.
Looking like some Slender Man action there.
Okay, well, if anybody can hear me, then great. If not, then too bad. And I apologize about the darkness because I made a new setup and it's terrible, and I'm not a technologically advanced guy, so we just have to make do with this. So what we got here is, and if I'm too loud, just turn me down. I'm sorry. Fix this stuff yet. Terrible.
You sound pretty good.
Nonetheless, okay, I'm good. Dave says I'm good. So we got, as you remember, the last time, the Nightcrawler had sauntered, stolen a pair of trousers. The man in black berated him for it, and he showed him the secret cryptid clothier building where you can buy some clothes. So, bought himself a nice pair of breeches and a belt, which is important. If you buy pants, more often than not, you should buy a belt to go with them. It's a practical thing to have because you can hang things off of it. It could be used as a, I don't know, if you have to try to whip a dog man coming at you full force and you got nothing else, take that belt off and try to whack him over the head before he shreds you to little bits, but usually they just use it for holding up your pants. Nonetheless, so Nightcrawler got himself a nice pair of breeches, nice new belt, and the man in black will not have to incarcerate him in the cryptid prison of some sort. Because I always figured, the man in black, they always say like, oh, I've seen a Sasquatch, and then black helicopters came by, and you had David Paulides with his guys bear hunting with super deluxe weapons and junk. This is almost ready for inking, actually, now that I'm looking at it. I'm just going to do the windows. So, that's that. But, I don't know, the Men in Black can probably be almost anything. I wouldn't, you know what? They should be good pizza delivery guys because they just kind of show up whenever. That your regular pizza delivery guys scoffing ciggies in the parking lot, wasting time, and who knows? I wish I had a pizza. But nonetheless, here we get these windows done with the super cheating device. The watercolor pen. Score. Love this thing. And I went to the store that I bought it from, and they don't have them anymore currently. The lady's like, we can order it for you. I'm like, I know what that means because I've worked retail and I work in warehouse. And I can order it for it means it goes on back order for 10,000 years. Pay now, get nothing later. Actually, I'm not satisfied with a little bit of sidewalk behind the man in black there. We'll color that sucker right in. A little blendy action. That's nice. All right, now I'm ready to. Actually, most of it's already dry, so we can go right to the drawing. This is the most important part and the most exciting. Oh, these earbuds are weird. All right, start with the stars. Detail action. I guess it's not too dark. Still can't really see the picture though. It's the first time I actually looked at it close range. Nah, it's a little too dark. It's not to my liking. I apologize. But you can still see what it looks like, and I'll take a nice picture after it's all done.
That ticking is back.
The
Do you hear
ticking
that,
is
Phil?
back. Is that my crappy music? Because I do hear like it's constant ticking. It's like.
I know. It sounds. I don't know if it's a bug or something. Kind of awesome
here. I'll put myself on mute.
No, it's not on you. It's on Mark. Because if I mute Mark, it disappears. Hey, there's our good friend, little Jimmy Goodall, hanging on out in Minnesota tonight. And who else is joining us? Lala Bright, thank you for the lovely super chat, along with Scrubster and Vaughn and Cat Chaser. Very much appreciate the love tonight. Dennis Benke, good to see you. And who else has jumped in here? 416 Bitcoin, thanks for joining us, man. And there we go. Kawhi, nice to see you. Mark, I don't know what that is, but we're going to go with it. Here comes hour 2.
Is it still there now?
Yep.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Come. Obumbrit. Obumbrit is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Hour number 2 with author Mark Muncy. His website, eerieflorida.com. We're going to get into the Coral Castle right now because this is a story that's been going on for decades, and the mysteries up to 2022 still continue. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. You can find all of Mark's books on his website, and he's got this ticking going on.
I have no idea. I mean, I'm like, I see in the chat people think it might be my computer fan. It could be other things. I have a dead silent computer, and it's actually across
it sounds
the room
like chattering teeth.
That's.
It sounds like chattering teeth.
I have all the air conditioners off. I have everything off in the house, so I have no idea. This could be from when we had that.
That's all right.
I had the whatever the blip was. So. It could be Robert. Clem, are you keeping it down? Clem looks like he's keeping it down. I don't know. So it's
well, you know what? That's what
we got. What makes this fun stuff here. Yep, we do have spooky stuff here. I live in a haunted house, so it's now we've got some audio proof. Maybe if people are listening and play this back slowly with an EVP reader, maybe we got something. I don't know. So, but yeah, Coral Castle's down in Miami. It's actually in Homestead now. It moved at one point. The old man moved it on the back of a truck at one point, basically over a period of 3 days. Now, what this is this guy, Harold Leedskin, he's like 5 foot nothing, weighed maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, and he decided to build this castle, and he built it out of coral. And he would he learned how to dig these big coral pits and mix them with mud and stone. So they make these giant pillars, and it looks like Stonehenge size stuff. Some of them are 30 tons. and he lifted them by himself. And people would ask him, how did you do it? How do you do this? And he'd say, well, if you know the secrets of the pyramids, you can do this yourself. Now, he was an inventor. He was also a very, good engineering guy, but he was an immigrant who apparently had no schooling and had, so how is he knowing all this electronics and engineering and stuff like that he would work with? But this is in the time of the Model T, and he would build, and the structures, one of them is aligned with the North Star. One of them, is, he's got all these sculptures that look like planets. He made a big throne. He made the state of Florida and made the water basin, Okeechobee, as a big giant stone table. And this is all in this beautiful castle that he walled in, and he lived there. And when the neighbors got too close, he's like, I've got to move this. And he literally moved it on a truck, piece by piece. How do you balance a 30-ton stone on an old pickup truck and drive it, 30 miles down the road to Homestead, where he sets it up? And he sets it up as a tourist attraction. Then at that point, he's okay with people because he set it up on a main road, and he starts charging a nickel a piece. And you put a nickel in this little slot, it opens the door for you, and you can go in. Now, the door was a 1-ton door made of coral, balanced on a thing, and you could push it with one finger and it would slide open like a revolving door. And it worked up until Hurricane Andrew came through and knocked it off its axle. And we realized he had made it on a Model T axle and had perfectly balanced it on that. And so everybody's got stories. Of course, famously, In Search Of did an episode on it. And it was like, oh, he was singing to the rocks. People said they could see him singing to the rocks, and he would move the rocks. And other people said that if he used his power of the mind to move these things. But there's a book with pictures called, it's down at the Coral Castle bookstore, and it shows him with pulleys and strings, and he's just really working hard and doing this stuff. I think it is a tribute to the power of one man. If he had the power, his best friend said if he could do it in his mind, why did it take him 20 years? He could have done it in 2 days. So it still took him a long time to build this thing. He lived there for years. When he passed away, it kind of went through a few different hands. And now, thankfully, a historical society owns it and runs it. They do allow photography, but they do not allow filming there. So if you're going to go there and vlog it for your YouTube, just remember you're just going to be able to take pictures. And they don't allow drones, all that. It's an amazing place, though, and I highly recommend everybody down there go visit it. It's incredible. And we do think, the ghost of Leadskin, we do think he's there. They get a lot of paranormal activity, and they did their first ever ghost hunt there last year, and I got to be part of that, which was amazing. So
for us who've never seen this with our own eyes, what's it like being there? What's the energy like?
It's you've got that whole South Florida vibe. We've got you're 4 miles from where Flight 401 crashed in the Everglades, so you're right on the edge of the Everglades, with the famous ghost of Flight 401, and then you're also just a few miles away from the Bellevue Biltmore in Coral Gables, which is one of the most haunted buildings in South Florida, where a president had to change his accommodations because he was bothered by a gangster ghost, according to Secret Service records. This is all in that same area. Like you like talking about triangles. This is the tip. There's also the Miami Mystery Circle near there, which was we didn't know what it was. They thought it was like a septic system when they were going to build a new tower on the waterfront of Miami. Turns out it's probably one of the oldest Indian, Native American sites from the Calusa Indians, and was probably inhabited for 5,000 years. And before that, they thought they were just a migratory tribe, and they did trading with Ohio and all this other stuff. So it's this whole area is crazy. And then in the middle of it, you've got this castle on a street corner of old US 1, and it's filled with stone, and you walk in and there is this eclectic energy. And of course they've turned it into a flower garden inside. So he had natural ways of gathering the water and all this. it's something a lot of guys in Florida. There was another castle. There was a thing called the Wonder House in Bartow where a guy did very similar. But that was a few years later, but still in the 1930s. And he built a castle out of stone, made his own cement mixture and mixed it with glass from stained glass into the rocks and made it so that the rain would come down and water all the plants. That's another story for another day. But like I said, that's what my books are full of, things like that. And, but that, that is just, it is a great place. And you go there. Now, what's funny about that place is because of Hurricane Andrew, the zoo nearby, all the crazy reptiles got loose during the storm. And so now these giant colorful lizards are populating the castle, and it looks like dragons have taken over the castle. I love it. So
Well, that just adds to the mystique. That's for sure.
yes.
I do want to ask you in regards to the fact that he said, if, basically the mathematics and the physics behind everything is, if you can figure out a way how the Egyptians were moving and building the pyramids, that you'll know how he moved the rocks. Yet, even with today's modern science, we can't figure that out on how this 5 foot, 100-pound man was moving 10, 20 tons of coral.
Yeah. And we know it was a pulley system, but we don't know what it was.
We should also preface that when he did do it, it was under the cover of darkness, and there was like walls of tents or material like tarps blocking so people couldn't see what he was doing, which to me doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it's crazy. He definitely was ignoring, he didn't want anything to do with the people. He wanted to be away from the people, but then suddenly he realizes, oh, I need to make a living. I need to, I need to survive. So that's when he starts charging admission. And then he got tired of taking admission outside. So that's when he built this, stone thing that you could put a quarter in and it would open that door. Which again, we couldn't figure out how he made that work. They still don't know how the little token thing works because they haven't opened it up. They don't want to open it up. It's, it's a treasure. It doesn't work anymore, but it's still there. Like I said, again, it took till Hurricane Andrew to damage any of it. And that's a Category 5 hurricane, wiped out towns. Coral Castle, a little bit of damage. Yeah, that's how strong he built that place.
You believe it's haunted?
I do. Like I said, after we did that ghost hunt there, I do believe Edward's there. I think he's still looking for his lost love because he built this for a love that, he wouldn't say who, but we think it was someone back from his home in Hungary before he immigrated that, he could never bring over. So he built her a castle instead. So.
My goodness. And for the Coral Castle, is it still today being studied for the mathematics and the geometry, the physics that went into making it damn near perfect?
That's exactly. People do still study it. And the historians there, encourage, the local college comes out, architectural students come out, engineering students come out. They try to, map it out and figure out how he did it. And it's, a lot of it's just, and they all say, oh, it's impressive stonework. Oh, it's, and it was a lot of them try to figure out the leverage because they do have a few photos where he's got, trees set up and some ropes where he's moving some stones. But again, it's still, the leverage on that is insane. He dug deep pits. So we know he kind of did that to stand them up. But some of these are 30 feet high and weigh, massive tons and tons. And again, this guy is a little guy. If nothing else, it is the sheer power of one man. What one man can do with determination and nothing else to do. So.
Right. All right. Well, let's continue on here because we do have a lot more topics that we do want to get to. Our guest tonight, Mark Muncy, EerieFlorida.com is his website that we highly suggest that you check out. You can find all of his books there. Have you ever looked into, the Bimini and the idea that maybe there is the road to Atlantis there?
That's, we stumble on that every time we start researching these things. Of course, that's, the same area. Flight 19 disappears. Again, there's a lot of unusual activity down that way. Um, the road there, again, who knows how old that is. Like I said, we found that Calusa, encampment in downtown Miami that no one even knew was there. Now it's protected site. They still built the skyscraper, but they had to, kind of build it angled over it so they couldn't damage the site. And now it's a dog park, which is crazy that this ancient site we just buried and made it a dog park to protect it. But that's I think the Bimini Road is definitely something that we need to know what this native tribe was that built it. Well, who were these people? Is it Atlantis? It's possible because we don't know where Atlantis was. Is it just something unusual? There are freak weather there. There is all kinds of unusual activity in that area. Boats have all kinds of unusual reports in the area. There are a lot of UFO activity in that area, or UAP now. But we also have reports of the USOs, the unsubmerged objects that generally become flying objects later. They come out of the water, and that's right in that area. And that's where the black triangles are seen. That's where some of the Tic Tac sightings took place. That's all right over the Bimini Road. So, yeah, there's something to it. What it is, that's not my area of expertise. But again, I reach out to groups and find out what they know about it. And some of them have some amazing theories in that area. The area right there is where the Crestview sighting happened, which is 1952 during the height of UFO flaps. An elementary school is there, and they're having their recess, and the kid is out on the playground. They're calling everybody in, and this boy Jimmy is seeing something up in the sky, so he won't come in. And the teacher goes over and says, "Jimmy, what do you see?" He's like, "Look at that." And they both see it. So now you have a grown-up witness and the kid witness, and they see this unusual saucer-shaped craft. And then it flies away, good distance away, but they don't know what to do about it. So they go inside. The next day, everybody's talking, what did Jimmy see? What did Jimmy see? And they're all hoping it comes back. And it does. And it brings friends. This big thing comes down. It's a big saucer with a turret, classic description of a flying saucer, but it brings these little spinny ships with it, some that look like little cubes with a circle around them. And this is and the Tic Tac style design. Now these are things back then people just said they looked like unusual little shaped things, and they describe these shapes flying in tandem with this giant craft. And it comes right down, and there ain't no keeping the kids in school. They all go running out to the field to see this thing, and it puts on a show for them. These things are doing all this kind of crazy maneuvers and all this, and it flies into the trees across from the school and disappears like it goes into a portal. And the kids are all disappointed because it's gone. Now, teachers are seeing this, kids are seeing this, hundreds of witnesses. And then it comes back again without the little ones, just the big ship. It comes back, spins around again, and then takes off into the sky super speed. The military show up a few hours later, and they are interviewing everybody. What did you see? And they're talking all this, and they finally get one of the kids says, "Oh, they were hovering like helicopters." So the next day in the newspapers, the first day was 10 minutes of terror. The next day it's a strange craft were helicopters from nearby air base. Okay, that's weird. And again, it disappears. It's kind of like Roswell, where
Right.
no one talks about it again for a long time because, it was helicopters. It was debunked. But then now with the Navy releasing the footage and talking about Tic Tacs and these other things, suddenly these kids who are now in their 70s, 80s, they are reaching out to people like me and going, "Hey, that wasn't a helicopter. I know what I saw. It looked like that thing on that video I just watched." And suddenly, that's what's, leading me back to Appalachia, is because I had one of them was interviewed by government people. And his dad had a list of names of the men who came and interviewed him at home. And it was like a Captain Smith, from the Air Force. So that's not going to help me much. Captain Sinclair from the Coast Guard. Now that was unusual. So I was trying to do freedom of information on that one. But the name that got me was the third one. It said government man, cold. Suddenly I was taken back to West Virginia. And this is 6 months after the Derenberger incident in Gallipolis. Yeah. And, right.
There's only one government man cold that I know.
From 1952. Yeah, exactly. And it's Indrid. And I'm goosebumps. And I'm like, and I'm telling this guy, you don't know what you have in this paper. You need to protect this with your life and all this. The problem, I'm like, can I publish this? Can I do this? And he's like, well, he's a guy, he's in public office down there. He hasn't retired yet. So he let me write the story, but I can't use his name. But I do have photocopies. I do have, pictures of it, and he has it saved. And when he retires, he's going to, share it with the world. But we've shared the story, and that's part of the new book, which is why the Florida guy suddenly had to write an Appalachian book and go back to his roots. So, and
that's why the Florida guy is coming back next month or so to talk about that book, because we need that story. We definitely, anything to do with Indrid Cold just weirds me right out. What is it about Indrid? We got about 3 minutes to go here. Okay. What is it about Indrid Cold that just, it scares you? It turns up your inquisition. It turns up everything, but it's scary and frightful because Indrid Cold, just mentioning his name has brought people Indrid Cold.
Yeah, and he is legendary. And I got to talk to Tanya Derenberger at one point. Woody's daughter, who the story is way too long to get into here. But you can pick up Eerie Appalachia at eerieflorida.com and get the story. But it's crazy because he is the man in black. But before there's Man in Black, but he's also in just a shiny suit and he's smiling and he's telling you, don't worry, I come in peace. I'm here to help. I just want to learn about you. I'm a traveler. But he says all this without ever saying a word, just smiling at you. So he's called the Smiling Man or the Grinning Man. And of course, modern day makes him the Joker, where he's got this big smile and this crazy thing that was never in the original stories or any original sightings. That's just kind of how we want to make him creepier than he is, that sort of thing. So, that's how this stuff works. We don't know what's going on. And if I lose you again, sorry. I just felt something weird happened. So forgive me. That was I just got a chill down my spine. Sorry, Indrid. I won't talk about you too much more. That was weird.
Oh, man. You got some weird stuff going on there.
I don't normally do these late at night, and I'm thinking that may be a reason that I don't do these late at night. Sorry, house. So, yeah.
Well, you know what?
Keep it down.
I don't know. Between the chattering teeth and sounds that we can't figure out, and everything else that's kind of happening, I'm loving tonight. Absolutely.
Everybody else in the house is not at all right. So there was something, I don't know. I'm sitting there going, okay, what's going on next door? Whatever. My wife is way in the back room feeding the pet spiders. She raises jumping spiders. Nice. Yeah, and then that's it. So I don't know. This is I'm a little unnerved, but I'm good. I'm here. Let's do this.
Oh, man. There's so many different directions that we could go. We'll probably head off into the paranormal and cryptid world next with Mark Muncy. I mean, why not? Why not throw in a few little hauntings and skunk ape sightings? We got to do that every now and again. You just can't sit back on your laurels here, and you got to do it. You got to make it happen.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you that someone said the jumping spiders are what we're hearing. No, they're quiet, but and they're about 3 rooms away, so I have no idea.
Well, you know what? It's going to be good. We got you for another half an hour here, Mark, and I am just loving this storytelling tonight, man. Yay. Loving this storytelling. So let's continue on here as we go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We got another 90 minutes left on Spaced Out Radio. Mark Muncy for the next half hour. His website, eerieflorida.com. Then we'll turn the corner, and we will be hanging on out with Swamp Dweller and maybe Super Duke or Robin. One of the two. Here we go. All right, we're clear.
I cannot figure out. I do not hear a ticking at all on my end, so that's so weird.
It's all right.
No, that was funny with Indrid, though. Right when I just started talking, I just literally felt just this cold chill, and I'm like, "Oh, wait!" And I can't have a cold chill because all the ACs are off because I didn't want any noise.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. It works for me, man.
Yeah.
Works for me. It's all good. Oh, man. Dirty Filth, how you doing down there? Is he there?
I like his Men in Black.
Yeah, that's the Man in Black.
And I like the Fresno Nightcrawler with some actual pants.
I'm trying to work here, like coming through clear and everything.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Filth. I know you're trying to work. Just forgive me, man. Forgive me.
It looks great. I should have bring some of my wife's illustrations, but yeah, I was trying to think if there's a fan. There's a fan in the other room off. Let me double check that. I maybe tune them out because I'm one more fan. Let me see. Any of that get it?
No.
That is literally everything in the house turned off except for the PC, which is a mile away from the microphone. So
must be something within your computer.
It must be something on the computer or something. I don't know, but there's nothing else running.
Weird.
So weird.
No big deal.
Yep. Done what I can. The house is getting stuffy, so maybe that's why there's so much activity. I don't let the house get this hot. So.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good, my friend. As long as we have a good time, that's all that matters.
Hey.
We hear you clearly, and that's what works.
Well, we're here to talk monsters and ghosts. You can't go wrong with that. So
you got that right.
I'll give you the top haunted places, and I can give you the quick monsters. We'll talk about Ocheesy Wildman. That's my favorite monster for Bigfoot. And
sure.
And then ghosts, I got a couple places that come to mind. And we can talk to Devil's Tree if you want to wrap it up with something about serial killers and death. So
well, we'll see what we can do.
All right. We'll see where it goes. We'll see where the story takes us.
Sure.
I was just in
Noob Smurf on Twitch. Sorry, Noob Smurf on Twitch. How you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. I will try and fit in some questions from the audience, too.
Oh, great.
Yeah. This has been a good time, Mark. Very good time.
I am honored to be here, and I'm sorry about the weird technical issues. That's so weird. I've never had a problem.
Let me just see. Paramarv, yes, we did talk about the Bach Tower coming out of the first hour, or out of the first. Excuse me, out of the first break. Oh, excuse me. I apologize about that. And let's see. We got about just over a minute here. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you tonight to Kira. Bob, Lala, Scrubster, Vaughn, and Cat Chaser for the amazing super chats. We appreciate the love and support of Spaced Out Radio right here for you. And here, Mark, let me extend that for you. So
that's Coral Castle. That's inside. It's like his moons, his planets, and his stars.
My gosh.
And then this is the big tower up front, and his little, and the glares on it. But that's right, that little stand right there, that's the where you put the nickel in. And that's
wow.
There. So
all right, we got 5 seconds here, everyone. Let's get right to it here. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Final half hours. We head home with Mark Muncy tonight. EerieFlorida.com is his website. You can order his books on there, like Eerie Florida, Freaky Florida, and Creepy Florida. And there's a new book out there as well regarding the Appalachia. Oh, yeah. Monsters and paranormal is where we're going here. Mark, tell us your favorite paranormal story from Florida.
Well, again, this would probably be a personal experience. So this for me, we were in the Bellevue Biltmore, which is an old hotel here in Clearwater, just a little north of where I live. And it was built, along with the Vanderbilts and the Biltmore money. And that's, and they built this beautiful hotel, 1800s. The train went right to it so that they could, people could come down here and visit and visit the beautiful beaches of Clearwater Beach. And it's still there today. They bulldozed parts of it. And that's where my story comes in. We were running the haunted house. This is before I was doing the books. And they were going to tear it down. We thought they were going to lose the whole building and the whole main building. And we were like, oh, that's not good. But they said they were auctioning off stuff, like the furniture and the lamps and everything was going to go. And I was thinking for my haunted attraction, hey, having stuff from the Bellevue Biltmore would be great. So, and I foolishly thought it might actually be cheap because it had been sitting in a hotel for 100 years. And I thought that might actually make it cheap. I didn't realize that made it collectible. But went there, and I went with a paranormal team that was there, the Spirits of St. Petersburg, and they wanted to investigate the place one last time because up on the 3rd floor was a ghostly bellhop, and they wanted to go see it. Well, when we get there, it's a big party. It's the last days. They think they're closing it down forever. And so everybody's doing like a Gatsby party. It was like everybody's dressed in 1930s garb. And there are all these bellhops and people in costumes. And I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. This was great. And they started auctioning this stuff, and it was way too expensive for me. But I'm like, all right, well, let's go upstairs. Let's sneak up to the 3rd floor while the auction's going, right? And the Spirits of St. Pete guys are like, yeah, heck yeah, let's do that. So they've got all this equipment with them in this bag, and we're taking it up the stairs. And we get up to the 3rd floor, and out of the hallway at the end of the room comes the bellhop. And we're all like, oh, they knew somebody was going to come up here. There's one of the actors up here in the bellhop costume. And he walks by. We're like, bravo, bravo. And he goes right past us. And then that's 3 of us doing that. The 4th one, the girl on the left goes, what are y'all applauding? What are y'all talking about? She didn't see him. We had cameras. They had infrared. They had all this stuff. None of it had been taken out yet. They were going to set up at the end of the hall to look for him. What did we see? So I immediately think, who punked us? You know, I'm running down the stairs to figure out who was the bellhop up on the stairs. I'm asking all these people. There was no bellhop up on that floor. What did we see? So yeah, there you go. Thank you, Dennis. Sorry, Robert. But yeah, this was crazy, right? This is an unusual story. You know, and that's why I like to tell people, say, "Oh, I've never seen a ghost." I go, "How do you know?" That guy looked legit, just like a guy in a bellhop costume. I did not. It was not, you know, what you think of as a spectral form from Ghostbusters or something like that, or a shadow figure that I'd seen before or anything like that. This was a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
And he walked right past.
There is still a ghost bellhop on duty at the famous Banff Springs Hotel, where literally he will take your luggage, and when you to your room, and when you turn to go tip him, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, and there are haunted buildings known all over Florida. There's pretty much every beach town has its own ghost tour. St. Augustine, it's a cottage industry in that town. As you mentioned, pirates at the beginning. You go up to Amelia Island, probably one of my favorite ghost stories there. Amelia Island was run by pirates for about 30 years. It's deep water port on all sides. It's right on the Florida-Georgia border. And Blackbeard was there. A lot of people have come through there. The most famous ghost there is Luke Ory. And his dad basically ran the island with the famous Scottish con man, Gregor MacGregor, who's got the greatest Scottish name ever. He took over the island and named it the Free Republic of Mexico or the Free Republic of Florida, back from was still Spanish. And the Spanish just didn't care. They left. But then they hear about all this pirate things going on. So they come back. And so they flee the town. Basically, the pirates all flee. The Spanish come back, except for Luke Ory. He kind of liked being a big shot in this town. So he thought he could work with the Spanish, maybe get them to work with the pirates and still keep it kind of a fun place. But what he didn't realize was the people in the town hated him because his dad was like a money lender. So that everybody owed his dad money. That's why they treated him so nice. Now with his dad gone, nobody was treating him nice. And then he realized quickly he was going to be put on trial and hung for his dad's crimes. And they did arrest him, and they took him to the old jail there. And he decides, no, I'm not having this. You can't have your hanging show. So he cuts his own throat. Now, what happens is the police come upstairs hearing the kerfuffle and see what he's done. So they save him. They stitched his neck back together. They save him, even though they're going to hang him in the morning. And then they button up his shirt and they take him out. Interestingly, he has no last words as they take him to the hanging tree outside. I can't imagine why. But with a slit neck and a hanging rope, pop goes the weasel. Does that make any sense to anybody? And apparently it was like being at a Gallagher concert. You were in the front few rows. You're in the splash zone. So everyone was covered in blood. It's this terrible thing. But his ghost still haunts that jail. And it's very Harry Potter. He's like nearly headless Nick. He's this pirate just kind of hanging with a disheveled head. And there's a blood stain at that jail cell that no matter how much they clean it, it comes back over and over and over again. It's part of the historical society up there at Amelia Island. Definitely a beautiful place. Fernandina Beach is amazing. There's all these other crazy stories up there. We love it. I think pretty much St. Augustine and Key West each get a chapter in all of my books, and then never the same story twice because there's just so many stories in each of those towns. Tampa Bay has tons of ghost stories. Pensacola has tons of ghost stories there. Wherever you go, you're going to find ghost stories, monster stories, dark legends, and that's what we do. I love it. That's why we keep doing it.
That's fantastic. Now, let's go to some monsters here, because there's a lot of monsters allegedly hanging out in Florida. And no, we're not talking the zombie guys who try to eat your face off when you pull over and see if you need some help. All right. The meth heads don't. Yeah, the meth heads don't count here. But just the idea that, you got the swamp ape, you got sea monsters, you got little people, you got a lot of things hanging around there. How frequent are these sightings?
So the Bigfoot sightings are very frequent. If you go to the BFRO, the Bigfoot reporting site, that site has sightings almost weekly down here. Especially right now, Mayaca Forest, which is a little south of Tampa Bay on the Gulf Coast, seems to be the major hotspot. Although another area up near Appalachia, the Appalachia National Forest, which also ties into a place called Tatel, there's a great legendary location. We have a lot of hells and devils down here in Florida, but that is also got a lot of recent sightings for skunk ape activity. Our probably most famous skunk ape sighting goes way back, and that's to the Ocheesee Pond, which you gotta love the Florida names, Ocheesee Pond. They had an encounter with what was then a wild man. They had stuff was missing from the town. They didn't know what to do. It's like fruit and food, and finally they go out. They form a posse, and they catch it. Now this is the first time it's been reported that we've caught a wild man, and the paper illustration of the time is this giant hairy gorilla-looking thing. Remember this is before gorillas were widely known. And these two guys with muskets that are like half his size holding him, and the cage only goes up to his waist. So, and it's taller than the men. So it looks like King Kong in this, this newspaper article illustration of catching the wild man. So what do they do with it? They don't know what to do with it. So they send it to the governor. Send it to the governor in Tallahassee. So they put him on the back of a stagecoach, strapped him to the back of a stagecoach with this cage, and drive him to Tallahassee. We have reports of the governor receiving him and going, what the hell is this? This is big, giant, hairy thing. I don't want it. Send it to the insane asylum, the state home for the mentally insane, which is not too far from the Capitol building. I think that's appropriate. But he sends it over there. We have the reports of it getting there. We have the reports of them booking him in. And then we have reports that he was going to be shaved. And then that is the last report we have until prisoner, I think it's like 624, is buried sometime later in one of the unmarked graves. Now, sadly, that unmarked graveyard has been built over by the main building of the Florida State Hospital. And so we'll never be able to get down there and see if there was some unusual bones mixed in with all the others. It's sad, but that is, the state of it. But and that made national press. So this is not just a local story. This flooded around. But again, this was yellow journalism time, so maybe it's a little exaggerated. But the wild man of Ocheesee Pond was probably America's first captured Bigfoot. And if only that had happened, a few years later down the line. There's other fun monsters. The Barden Booger. Again, we can't have nice things. We have to name them. It can't be the Beast of Barden. It's the Barden Booger. He's like the laziest skunk ape ever. He carries a lantern with him, and people see the lantern, and he's always panting because it's Florida. It's hot. If I would I'd be panting too if I was in a fursuit in the swamp in Florida. But he also has like a fishing rod at one point. He's like fishing. I'm like, I love this guy. He became pretty popular around the time Bigfoot mania in the 70s. And they actually wrote a song about him called the Barden Booger Boogie. And you can find it online, trust me. But we're realizing now, it's kind of goofy, but that all came from an editor in the 1960s at the Jacksonville Herald. He used the Barden Booger as his signing thing to complain about old times and all this. He's the one who kind of made him more lazy and all that. The real sightings of the Barden Booger are scary. He scared, took a lady off a horse with a swipe, and she saw the ghostly lantern as he walked. He blended into the woods, but she saw the light fade away. So is it a ghostly Bigfoot? All that. It's kind of interesting. He's a fun story. And then, we've got, Tate's Hell, which is a story about a man who, got lost in the woods for several weeks because of an Indian curse and said, I've been through hell. So they call it Tate's Hell. But there were sightings there of more recently of dogmen. And so we think the dogmen have kind of moved over, or maybe the Rougarou from Louisiana, which isn't too far from there, might have moved into that territory. And they seem to be chasing out the skunk apes. Like they seem to be migrating further south. So it's a really interesting place. I mean, there are so many, the Everglades skunk apes, Dave Shealy's famous sighting in 2000 And he's got the Skunk Ape headquarters down there, which is a must stop on Alligator Alley. His looked more lanky and orangutan like, and it's running through swamp. I still don't know why that footage doesn't get the credit like the Patterson Gimlin film, because it's 2000s, it's video, it's solid. He keeps it on it for minutes, and it's running through waist deep water like nothing. And this is alligator snake infested swamp. You know, I don't know who would be willing to, hoax that, let alone, that changed that man's life. He's been skunk ape hunting forever since that. So, yeah, we're all over the place with that stuff. And the scariest place.
Yeah.
You want to know the scariest place in Florida?
I definitely do.
All right. Scariest place in Florida. It's a toss up. I would say the Dozier School is probably the real scariest place. That's a school for boys where it was basically 110 years of state-sponsored child abuse. We won't end on that, but we will go to a place down in Port St. Lucie called the Devil's Tree. Now, we have a lot of devil stuff. We have the Devil's Chair in Casadega. We have the Devil's Millhopper, which is a sinkhole on top of another sinkhole in Gainesville. But the Devil's Chair, the Devil's Tree down in Port St. Lucie, this has got everything you want in a story. So you go to this tree in the middle of nowhere, in Oak Hammock State Park now. But if you went there, it was said it was created by the devil. It drips black sap from this gaping maw in the side of it. And if you collect that black sap and use it for candles and your rituals, it will increase your power. So people worship this tree. People do this things to this tree. Why do they do that? Where did this come from? Well, it goes back only to 1970. And 1970 is a man with three names. And we learned quickly doing Florida history, if a man has three names in Florida, he's one of two things. He's either a politician or a serial killer. And this guy was the latter. His name was Gerard John Schaefer. And he was a police deputy down in Broward County. And he would do what he called twofers. He would kidnap two people. He would find hitchhikers in pairs, and he would take them in. He'd flash his badge, take them in his car, and then he would take them to this secluded tree, which had an old abandoned house near it. And he would tie them to the tree, do terrible things to them, and make them decide who dies first. And then once that happened, he would kill one and still do terrible things to the body. And then he would kill the other one and do terrible things to that. It was horrible. He did this for a long time. And suddenly he lost his job, had to move back in with his mom and move a few miles north. When he did that, he tried starting up again in the new area, but he didn't have the tree. And so he was trying to find a new area. He grabbed two more girls, but they escaped. And they were able to get him on false imprisonment and kidnapping. And it was while they were putting him on trial for that they discovered, a peddler discovered the bodies at the old tree. And so they put two and two together, figured out, okay, this guy is more than just a bad cop, and so they did put him, they got the search warrant, went to his mom's house, got into his room and found his trophy case, which was a shoebox. In that he had hundreds of letters where he had basically confessed to 86 murders, but they also found teeth that matched one of the victims down at the Devil's Tree. So he went away for a long time. He confessed his innocence. He's like, I didn't. Those are just stories. I'm a writer. He actually published a book from death row called Serial Fiction, written by a man on death row. And he went to his grave saying, I'm innocent. But he was pen pals with Ted Bundy, and he would brag to Ted Bundy about how he killed more than him. And all this other stuff. So but he said, I was just joshing with him. I was just playing with him. But the tree still had that legend. And so they decide to kill the tree, and they hire a couple men to chop it down. When they go at the tree, their chainsaws stop. So they go to drive and get a new chainsaw, and they get in a head-on collision and die. So the legend is the tree protects itself. But then another person got a brilliant idea, said the reason they died was they had bits of the tree in their chainsaw. So that's what caused the accident. So I'll take the bits of the tree and put it in my husband who's been cheating on me's car, and then he'll get in an accident and I'll have the greatest, crime that will never be, solved. But she got in an accident on the way out, and that's why we know that's what her plan was. So they decide to seal up the hole in the tree where the black sap is dripping with cement and hope that will kill it. Well, it grows around it, and it now has an impervious cement trunk, so it's never going to go anywhere. They tried poisoning it. That didn't happen. So now it's in the park, and they built this park around it, and the trails go nowhere near the Devil's Tree. So if you go to the park, you wouldn't see it unless you know the right way to go in. But vloggers and tripping on legends people love to go do this stuff all the time. And the Devil's Tree is a beautiful place. And every time we've gone, though, and the ruins of the house are still there. There's still the foundation right behind it. But we always tell everybody, when you go there, please don't light candles at its base, because every time we go there, we see wax on the roots where people are still worshiping the Devil's Tree and all that. There's a cute little box turtle that lives right there. We've seen him every time we've gone for the last 20 years. Please don't ruin his home with fire. But go there and just remember, this is a somber place where some bad things happened. And
we got about 3 minutes to go here before we got to say goodnight to you. This flowed by way too fast, Mark. Trust me when I say way too fast. But I want to ask you quickly about, is Florida a very superstitious type of state? Because, a lot of these legends and folklore you're talking about, this leads right into superstition and lore.
Yeah. And it's been there forever. And I think, like I said, it goes back to the natives. They have, spiritualism is their way of life. Casadega was a spiritualist camp, founded here by a psychic that led him here. His spirit guide told him to build this place in Florida. We had the center, the Hollow Earth people built a city here thinking we were the center of Hollow Earth. And it was in Estero, the Coretians. And there's all these crazy things go on here. This isn't new. This is stuff that's been going on for centuries. It's going to go on for centuries more. Everything flows to Florida. That's why everybody comes here. That's why the mouse is here. The mouse is haunted. The Universal Studios has ghosts now because the Harry Potter land, they brought in crazy things to make it look scary. Well, they brought in real stuff, and now some of the stores there have ghosts. The employees are afraid at times. The Pirates of the Caribbean ride has a ghost they have to say hi to and goodnight to every morning, or it breaks down. There's all these crazy stories. So yes, legends are there. They're just hidden. You don't see them unless you go to St. Augustine, and then there's a ghost tour on every block, which I highly recommend the Sheriff's Ghost Walk if you're there. He's the best. He's been doing it the longest, and he'll give you the history as well as the ghosts.
90 seconds. Let everybody know where you can find your books, your website, and what you're doing in the future coming up here.
Yeah, where EerieFlorida.com is probably the best, although EerieTravels.com is our new, I do a YouTube show. It's actually for a local channel here in Tampa Bay called Eerie Travels, and they rebroadcast it on YouTube. First season's up, next season soon. Watch for that Robert the Doll documentary. If you just keep watching Robert the Doll documentary, it'll eventually pop up. But I'm also speaking at the Mothman Festival this year. I'll be at Dragon Con on Labor Day weekend on a couple paranormal panels, and I'll be at the Bard's Tower booth with several major authors there, and my books will be there too. You can order direct from us, and my lovely wife and I will sign them for you, and she'll draw some scribbles in there for you. She's super talented. She's the talent. I just do the words. And then you can also find us. Our books are everywhere. Books are sold, of course. And down here in Florida, we're in every CVS, Walgreens, and Cracker Barrel in the state. My publisher loves us, so we're all over the place. So there you go. You can find us. It's hard not to find us.
That's good. And I want to remind our audience that you're going to come back next month to talk about, the weirdness of Kentucky, West Virginia, Mothman, Indrid Cold. We're going to get that lined up here pretty quick with you, so that way we can have a date. I do apologize to our audience tonight. I literally was so into this conversation with Mark that I forgot to take audience questions. That is on me. I apologize. Bad host. But I promise you that we will do that next time when Mark is back on in just a few weeks' time. You know, it's very rare I bring someone on that quickly on a turnaround, but this one's going to be special. Mark Muncy at EerieFlorida.com. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp, and then Robin McCrae is filling in for Super Duke on the Cryptid Report. We'll be back with Hour 3 on Spaced Out Radio next. Fantastic show, my friend.
My pleasure. Sorry about the technical difficulties and the spooky stuff. I don't know what's going on, and
That's
I'm kind of
okay.
like, I'm like, all right, time to get the, I don't actually have any holy water or sage because I'm like, whenever it comes home,
it's stopped now.
It did.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's stopped
now. Interesting. So, well, anyway, it was an honor, sir. A pleasure.
And, we're gonna do it soon.
Just get back in touch with me and we'll set up a time. I'll be happy to come back on. If we can do it right before Mothman, I'll plug the Mothman Festival. They'd love that. So
yeah, we'll see when our schedule. I'm taking a couple weeks off in September. So
well, maybe after.
Yeah. After 7.5 years or 7 years and 10 months, I'm actually going to give myself a 2-week mental break.
Bravo. Yep.
Yeah.
As my day job is HR, I approve this, this leave. Yeah. Get yourself some rest and relaxation.
I hear you, buddy. All right, Mark, I'll let you go.
Bye.
And we'll talk to you soon, okay? Good night. Mark Muncy, everybody. We're going to turn this. I think Filth is done for the night, but that's his latest comic. I will be right back here momentarily. right. Hello, everybody. How are you? We'll say goodnight to Dirty Filth. And our friend, the Swamp Dweller, come up next. Once again, I do apologize. Hey, Nicholas, how you doing? I do apologize, guys, that I didn't get to any of your questions. You know that's rare for me. So I do apologize. Thank you tonight to Dennis, Bob, Bob, Lala, Kira, Cat Chaser, Vaughn, and Scrub-a-Dub-Dub for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support. Hi, Pinzer Flactum. Good to see you. And Oob to Joe's Main, you've got Lola. And anybody else sneaking in here that I haven't seen? That's about it. We got like 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Obumbrit. Obumbrit is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It's time once again. We head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another spooky journey.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. Last night, I had a lot of strange and stressful dreams, particularly about a woman who was stalking me. I had woken up sometime around 5 in the morning to leave for work, but ended up waking up at 5:30 from my stressful dream. When I rolled over to check my phone for the time, I noticed right away that I saw something staring at me through my window. It was standing slightly away from the door, looking directly at me. My back door to my house has a long, narrow window that you can see out of. At first, I thought my vision was blurry due to me just waking up and being slightly stressed, but I just sat there for a couple of minutes, staring straight at this thing. I thought maybe my eyes still weren't fully adjusted, but I could see whatever this thing was moving. This thing had white and brown fur, and it looked like it might even be going mangy at the top. I was startled and considered maybe I was dreaming or having sleep paralysis, but I firmly believed that this just was not the case. I could still think for myself and was questioning absolutely everything. I could still move and talk. I was just frozen with fear. I slowly pulled the blanket over my head and made a small space in between so I could still see the thing. I'm a bit blind, so naturally my vision blurred once I did that. I watched, frozen in fear, for roughly 15 minutes until my alarm went off, and then I decided to investigate. I felt safer because my family and friends would start waking up around the same time as I usually did. There was nobody there and no trace of any human being or any creature around. We have a backyard camera pointing towards the back door where I thought I saw the guy. I asked my mom if she would come check them around the same time I saw the guy, and she told me that the only thing on our deck was a fox. The window is very much above ground, so there's no way a fox would be able to get up that high for me to see. I do practice my culture. I don't know if maybe that had anything to do with it, but the whole experience confused me. I was very alert the moment I saw the thing on my deck. I could see this thing's face and head move a bit as it stared me down through the window. It felt intimidating, and it almost snapped me out of my sleepiness that I was in. Does anyone know what this could have been? A lot of friends and other natives around the area say it could have been a skinwalker, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. I am 21 years old, turning 22 in July, and living in St. Louis, Missouri. I've watched stories of werewolves, wendigos, and skinwalkers, but for me, this is one encounter that will stick with me for the rest of my days. It was back around New Year of 2021. I was 20 years old at the time, and everyone but myself went to bed because they usually don't stay up for the countdown for New Year's. So I stayed up watching the TV. I got hungry at one point, so I made some popcorn and added some white cheddar popcorn powder afterward. I grabbed some Sprite from the refrigerator and waited for the popcorn, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw something flash by. I didn't think much of it at first, only thinking it was my imagination, not knowing that later I would regret not taking it seriously. I sat on the couch with my finished popcorn and soda, watching the TV before the power went out. It was not odd around my subdivision. This happens every now and then. I had to wait roughly 10 minutes before the power would come back on, and that's when I saw something outside on the back deck. Our deck is all wooden, so whatever was out there, I could hear the claws tapping across the boards. I froze, and knowing the window to the deck was next to me, I didn't want to take any chances of being seen by whatever it was. I felt like someone or something was watching me from the window. So I slowly but very carefully turned my head to see a big bear-sized dog or wolf-like thing staring right at me. I didn't lock eyes with it in fear that it would see me as some sort of prey. This was no dog. I'm no expert on werewolves, but I'm pretty sure what I saw was a werewolf. I slowly reached over to grab my phone when the werewolf had its face on the window from the deck looking at me with red eyes. The ones you would see in an anime with wolves when it's angry or wanting to attack. I stopped frozen in my tracks once again, sweat dripping, and I could feel my heart begin to race. Was I going to be this thing's next meal? I saw this thing's large canine teeth as they looked at me with eyes that wanted to tear me into shreds. This thing began to pant and it almost sounded like it was trying to speak to me. I didn't want to know what this thing had to say even if it could speak. I thought to myself maybe I could try to blind it and get away, so I took my phone and shined my flashlight directly in its eyes. It looks like this worked because that werewolf thing growled in annoyance and ran off the deck. After a few minutes I heard another howl from the distance. I never saw that werewolf, dog, man, whatever creature again, and I've never told anyone about it until this show.
Oh, the swamp dweller, taking us on another journey tonight. We absolutely love it when he's here with us. So thank you, Swamp Dweller, for joining us once again on Swamped Out Radio here on the Mighty SOR. And don't forget, you can always go listen to more stories. He's got thousands of them at youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads, and check it on out for yourself. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get to the Cryptid Report. Joining us tonight on the Cryptid Report is one of my favorites, Robin McCrae, the Sasquatch Psychic, filling in for Super Duke World Bigfoot Radio. How you doing, Robin?
I am doing great. I love coming on this show. So I get lucky. You're stuck with me this week while Duke's off in the mountains playing with the Bigfoot, having a good time.
I'm so excited about that.
I
So
am
excited.
too.
He deserves it. He deserves it. He works hard.
He really does. And they were so cute because they were really excited he was coming up. And the one day I had talked to them the day before and I said, he's coming. And then his plans had changed on the date he was leaving. And they were like in a panic. And I told him, I said, he will come. He will come. They actually got hold of my husband and said, where's Duke? Where's Duke? So I wasn't home at the time. So he got hold of Duke and he said, listen, they're now bugging me. They want to know where you're at. So
Oh my.
they were quite excited. And Duke called me and he said, didn't you tell them I was coming? I said, I did, but they don't have time. Like we created time. For them, time is a moon and the moon or the sun. And I said, I tried to explain it to him. They just want you up there. So hopefully he gets a lot of activity. If not, he's going to be getting stared at a lot.
Well, the powers that you have and your communication abilities with Sasquatch, it doesn't surprise me.
Oh,
It
thanks.
really doesn't surprise me anymore. Nothing really surprises me with you. And I love that about you, and I admire that about you. So, I'm glad you're here, and thank you for coming on in and joining us and filling in for Duke. Robin, for a lot of people, they may not really understand what you do. So, you are a psychic medium, and you have been in communication over the last number of years with the Sasquatch creatures. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, come on, how can you be doing this? That creature doesn't exist. This lady's phony. This lady's this lady is that. Come on, Robin, what kind of medication are you on?" You've heard it all, but yet when people take your when people take your advice, you have a large number in the in the Sasquatch community that actually stands behind your every word.
I'm very, very blessed, and I never take that for granted. I work with a lot of people that contact me, whether or not it's to communicate with the Sasquatch that they want to, or just how to handle different situations. I don't know it all. I'm not an expert, but I feel very honored when people do. I don't take that lightly. So I try to help them the best I can. I've been very lucky. I mean, my track record's been good. I'm not perfect. I don't think anybody is, but so far things are working. I mean, I've had contact with all the cryptids and the ETs and, spirits and ghosts. So it's been going on like this since I was a toddler. It's who I am. The people that want to take the time to get to know me or ask advice or whatever, I try to help to the very best of my ability. For the haters or the ones that, don't believe in it, that's okay. You're just not, your vibration and your energy is not open enough and high enough to accept what's really out there. I'm not the only one that can do these things. It's just that I am and people talk to me, but I don't take offense to that. If they don't want to believe me, I'm okay with that. It's just not where their heads are at this time. So while they're not thinking I can do any of this, I'm out playing with my Bigfoot. So I just don't get too worked up about it.
Yeah, no kidding. I could see exactly what you're saying there. And you can't. You just got to have big shoulders and let it rub off. I mean, for you, I know you got a story plan, but I'm so intrigued by you. So intrigued by you. I want to ask you questions all night long. I do.
That's all right. Because, I mean, there's not any really big story. There's been the last few days, there's been a few things that we can talk about that are really just bizarre. But I have no problem with the question and answer thing. And I'm that person that I will tell you I don't know the answer if I don't.
All right. Well, let's take a look at things that have been going around your area. Explain to people where you live so they understand that you literally have Sasquatch walking onto your property almost on a daily basis.
Okay, something just is over in the bushes and it made a weird noise. This has been going on since I was a toddler. I was born and raised in Michigan. It went on in every place I ever lived at while I was in Michigan. I'm currently in South Carolina. It hasn't changed here. It just transferred over to where I'm at. And we are looking for property to move back to Michigan. But this is going to be my final move. So I need lots of woods and that kind of thing. So I'm kind of being really picky right now.
Okay, so why move back to Michigan?
I moved to South Carolina to spend some time with one of my daughters and my grandchildren, who I love. But I still have grandchildren in Michigan, and my mother's in Michigan, and I have other children in Michigan. And I also have a son and his wife and a granddaughter in Canada, in Vancouver. But Michigan is home. South Carolina is nice. I'm not knocking the state. It's not my cup of tea. I don't like living on the sun. The humidity is horrific. But I am a person that every day I am out in the woods. That's what I do. I have my regular pattern that I do, which the Sasquatch love because they know what to expect from me. Here, where I'm at now, because of my location, I have nothing but rattlesnakes. I have the copperheads, I have the water moccasins. You don't walk out in the woods here. It's like the danger zone. And it's in a pine tree forest, so there's mulch all over the ground, and they hide under that mulch. And it can be really difficult. I'm fortunate that they just come up to the house, so it's not usually a problem. They're normally looking in the window, tapping on the window. I've currently, while we're talking, over in a set of bushes off to my right, I'm hearing foot stomps and gurgling noises. So,
Nice.
they're generally around.
Well, say hi to them for us if you don't mind.
I sure will. The thing is I don't just get the Bigfoot. I get the dogmen. I've had a werewolf. I get the ETs. I have the UFOs. There's been countless people come to my home that have seen these things. So it's not just, if it was just I was the only one that saw it, I would question my sanity. I question it enough with everything that goes on. But when you have other people physically see what you're seeing, that takes it to a whole new level. I have photos, and I think I shared them with you, of the UFOs and of the Bigfoot and of the dog. It's all there. It's all documented.
Do you ever wonder why you?
Every day of my life. Every day of my life. I don't know a time that they weren't there. My mom still talks about when I was 2 and 3 years old, talking about, my friend, the one who didn't have a tail and one did have a tail, and tall, bigger than my dad, and covered in hair. And I would talk to them all the time, and she just assumed it was an imaginary friend. She doesn't think that now, but at the time she did. And it's just, they've always been there. So I don't know anything different. I end up feeling like the weirdo all the time. But I wouldn't change it. I would never, ever want it any other way.
Don't blame you. Don't blame you. For people who are trying to communicate with Sasquatch, who are trying to get that communication going, maybe not something as exquisite as yours, but something for themselves, because we have a lot of people out there, Robin, who go into the woods and just want one encounter, from a safe, whether it's from a safe distance, sure, or whether it's, by accident where, you slip up behind a tree and, and playing hide and go seek with the kids on a camping trip. And next thing you know, Sasquatch is playing hide and go seek with you.
Yeah. I mean, the best advice I can give people, and I get asked that a lot, quit chasing them. They don't want to be chased. These are a type of people. They may not be our people, but they are a type of people. And if you want respect from them, you have to respect them too. I mean, it's a two-way street, and you want to put in the time to have a good contact with them and not a bad. You start running around looking for them like a bunch of crazy people, and then they get mad, and then, then there's problems. So you've had that encounter, you've been able to see them, but it's not a positive experience. A positive experience you can build through a lifetime with them. You don't want the negative. The best way to do any of it with them is learn about them, learn about their culture, accept the fact that they are part people, and go out and have a campfire. Just sit there, have a campfire, cook some food on it, laugh. it raises your energy, it raises your vibration, and that's what they're drawn to. It's literally like a magnet for them. And if they're in that area at the time that you're doing these things, more than likely they'll show up at the campsite. They, in their head, because their culture is different. I mean, they are a type of people, but they're not our people, so they do things differently. They don't want to be chased. They don't mind sharing the space. They don't mind, most of them, unless you're over by where the kids are, they don't mind sharing the woods. What they do mind is being hunted. And so they like to be in control. They decide, my chair's squeaking, sorry. They decide who they're going to have contact with, who they're not going to. So when you go into the woods, even if you can't mind speak, you can talk to them with your mind or even verbally and say, I'm here in peace. I just want to be out here and enjoy the woods and enjoy you. And I come in peace, and sit down, have a campfire, laugh, joke around, have a meal, and just camp. People don't realize how much they're in the campgrounds. I mean, they're all over the campgrounds. You go into the mountains in Pennsylvania and they get in the campgrounds and they're stealing stuff out of everybody's cooler and they're running around like hooligans, but be respectful. And when it comes to the mind speak, and we've talked about this before, it's all right to mind speak with them. But if you're going to mind speak, you have got to learn how to read energy, because everything out there can mind speak. All the cryptids, all the ETs, the dimensionals, the elementals, anything that's coming in and out of a portal. So you need to know what the energy feels like from what you're talking to. So if something comes in that you don't want to talk to, you don't respond to it.
Very true. How do you know what's around you? Like you said, you got some huffing and puffing going on and have steps beside you right now. But how do you know what's beside you?
Well, no, I read energy, so that helps. I mean, it kind of gives me a little bit of a leg up on what it is. What I pick up over there is male, probably 6-7 foot, which means it's an adolescent, and they're all over the place here anyway. But really, once you get used to what they feel, it's like if you're at home and your partner or spouse or whatever is in the other room and they come in the room behind you, you can feel them come in before they ever say anything, because you know what that energy feels like. Your body knows what that energy feels like. And it's basically the same thing. When you're around them enough, you get to know the feel of them. And now I'm to the point where I can detect which individual it is, because I'm used to that energy. When I'm around anything or I have contact with anything, while I'm speaking with it, I'm trying to pinpoint the energy. And it's just like if you have a little file of facts and you put down, oh, this one feels like this. It's a signature. It's not any different than when somebody signs their name, only it's an energy signature. And over time, you get used to it. You get used to what it is, who it is, which individual it is. One of the ones that I'm extremely close to, I'm forever getting things that'll come in and talk to me and say it's him. And I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You don't feel anything like him, And then I just cut off communication. I refuse to talk at all. And later on, I'll ask him if it was him. No, it wasn't me. And I'm like, I know. I was just checking. If it was you, I'm sorry I ignored you, but I know it's not you. And that's just practice over time.
Right. With that practice that you're going through, we've got about 30 seconds left. I mean, we'll save it. We'll save it till we got you right on the back part here of the break, because I think it's important that, when you go out in the forest, I'm a firm believer that these creatures allow you to see them.
Yes.
One or every now and again, one may get caught, but I think for the most part, they allow you to see them. Because that trust and faith that's been built between both. We'll get into that and more. Robin McCrae here on the Cryptid Report, filling in for Super Duke for World Bigfoot Radio. Lots and lots of questions for Robin tonight. I love it when she's on. She'll be on again later this week, filling in for Super Duke. The Cryptid Report continues the next half hour. And at the top of the half hour, right before we say goodnight, we'll get to Shirky Poo's news. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Perfect. Quick. All right. Oh, I love it when you're on.
Well, I have so much fun in your show. I really look forward to it. I told Duke, I said, I'm glad you're going to go and have fun, but I'm going to have just as much fun.
Good.
I know
Super
you and
Duke.
I get talking and we could do it forever.
Oh, I just have so many damn questions for you. I do.
But that's
And
okay.
you blow my mind, and I love it when people blow my mind.
Well, like I told you before, if I don't know it, I'll tell you I don't know it because I don't know everything.
No, I understand that, and that's one of the reasons why I highly respect, what you do on a daily and nightly basis, because, you may know a lot, you may have some interactions that are, highly contestable, but at least when you don't know something, we know you're not making it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it gets really crazy because it's like I'll answer people and it just automatically comes out because it's the truth. I can't change it. And I've gotten to the point where, I used to really try to downplay it or sugarcoat it for people, and it didn't do me any good. So now it's just like I just, plop it out and people can do with the information what they want. They can cast it aside or they can ponder it or they can listen to it. And, everybody has free will. I don't take offense to the people that don't, as long as they're not being hateful. That's the only part that bothers me. And it's not that I get really, butt hurt or anything like that or cry about it. It's just, I don't on anything, whether it's me or anybody else, simple human kindness. Like our world is so lacking in that and compassion. And it's like, I don't have room in my life for hate. I just don't.
Hi, Abdullah E. I see, or is that Abdullah I? Hagar, welcome to SOR chat. Thank you for joining us. I love new faces in our chat room. It's pretty cool when that happens.
Yeah. Getting lots of people. Like I've noticed just the last few shows I've watched, a lot of new people on there, which is fantastic.
Well, I'm trying to, I'm playing against the algorithms now on YouTube. Now that we have our music stuff sorted out, it's only been like a few days. Mike Bothwell, how you doing? But what was happening was we had permission from our music guy to use his music. And for up until last 2 weeks, we had to submit a letter to YouTube every show because his music fell under copyright infringement. So I finally 2 weeks ago got a hold of somebody at Google and said, look, this is my plight. My friend allows us to use his music for his show. We've never changed our music. We've got, he's reached out to ASCAP and TuneCore, the companies that help artists so their music doesn't get ripped off. And they're like, okay, well, what seems to be the problem? I said, literally every episode we get, and I sent them all the information. I sent them the letter again, and finally they released us. Finally.
Good.
Yeah. And it's funny, since they've released us, see, every time you get a copyright infringement, that scares away potential advertisers. It scares away people finding you on YouTube. And like literally since this happened 2 weeks ago, we're up 200 subscribers in less than 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty phenomenal. Like all of a sudden it's just gone like straight up. Like I'm very confident now we're going to hit 20,000 subscribers before the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. I think your show's picked up a lot and you've had some really good guests on there. Everybody loves it. I don't hear ever negative comments about your show.
Well, that's good because we try our best. We really do.
Well, you know
And
what? It's a comfortable place even for your guests. I'll tell you that because it's like you old home week. I come on here and I feel so welcomed and it's so awesome and everybody has just been really kind. I love it. I mean, I know
good.
everybody misses Duke on here, but I'm enjoying myself.
Well, we love it when you're here too. Hold on just a couple of seconds here. We're going to launch the final half hour right now. Let's take it on home as we round third, and we're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let's continue on with the Cryptid Report. Robin McRae filling in for Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Robin, good to have you here.
Thanks. That's so good to be here. I love it.
Oh, we love it when you're here too. All right, let's continue on with the idea of trying to communicate with these creatures and how I believe, and many First Nations people believe this as well, that you don't find Sasquatch, they find you. What's your
100%? 100%. People will get hold of me and they're like, well, if I come to your house, am I going to see one? I said, I don't know if I'm going to see one. I have no control over it. It would be great if you could. Have I encouraged them to? I have, but that doesn't always mean that it works out. I had a friend of mine that does different conferences, and first time he came here, I asked them, I said, I'm not asking you to come out and shake his hand or give him a visual, but do something so he knows you're here. And he pulled in the driveway and he got out of the car and he went to get in the trunk to get his bag because he was going to spend the night. And they were in the bushes next to where he parked and they were like shaking the bushes, scared the tar out of him. And then he came in the house and he went out on my back deck and they were running around in the backyard. It was in the dark, but he could still see the movement. So he got an eyeful. But I don't have that kind of power over them. I don't know of anybody that does. I know a lot of people say, if I tell them to be there, they'll be there. And occasionally that will happen. I asked for one that I hadn't seen in a while, but I had talked to a mind speak one time. And I said, it's been a long time since I've seen you. And I just figured it wasn't going to happen. And I went to the store and I came home and he was standing in my backyard. So, but it's all on them. It's 100% on them. They decide they decide when they feel you're ready for it. They decide when they feel you're ready for mind speak. Everything is by their decision.
If it is by their decision, and they're kind of making the rules up as we go, how do they decide whether or not they're going to show themselves to you?
Well, they know what's in your heart before you do. They know, and because they are telepathic and they also use telekinesis, they know mentally what they feel you are ready for. So what it comes down to is what they feel that you're ready for and what they feel they are ready for. And that's on an individual basis by which one is trying to connect with you. Where does he connect with you at? Is he going to connect with you near where he lives? Is it where he's gone a distance to see you, where he feels safe that you're away from the children because they guard the children all the time? So it comes down to circumstances and what they feel you're ready for. I can remember years ago saying, I know I'm supposed to do something for you. Just what is it? I'm ready. I've been talking to you since I was little. What is it? And basically they wanted me to do healing and portal work and various things and different jobs that they wanted to send me on, to like heal the land and bless graves and all kinds of stuff. But I felt I was ready. And I would go out and sit with them every night and I'd say, I'm ready. Just let me do this. I don't know what it is you want me to do, but I'm ready. And they would laugh at me. And they said, you may think you're ready, but we'll know when you're ready. And when they felt I was ready, all of a sudden now I'm doing all this stuff. You can't rush it. You can't push it. There are things that you can do to encourage the contact, but it comes down to respect from both sides. And to, like I said, build that campfire and sit out there. I'm sitting out on my porch right now. I'm not out in the woods running. And I'm not saying don't go out in the woods. Go out for a walk, look for structures, look for footprints, but don't be running them down because that drives them just over the top. But I'm sitting out here on my front porch. When I was on the show the other day, I was on my back porch and they were hooting and hollering in the bushes next to the porch. And they did that till almost 5 a.m. And my husband heard them. And then tonight I'm on the front porch and I've been getting like gurgles and grunts over from the corner of my house. And all I can see is bushes, but I'm hearing all the noises. But I'm not out pushing the boundaries with them. I'm letting them come to me. And that makes a big difference.
I can see that. And I can appreciate that. Most of us don't have that ability. I want to ask you, because for many of us, myself included, I'm still quite a rookie on this. All right. How do we know when we are in a Sasquatch area?
You're going to feel, number one, I tell people, obviously look for the structures. Don't ever, please, do not ever mess with the structures. Let them alone. They made those. It's not for us to handle. If you want to put your hand in it, up at the upper part underneath of it to feel if there's an energy flux in there, that's fine. Just don't take them apart and dissect them. But you're going to notice when you go in the woods, a calmness. You're going to feel that the energy feels different. It doesn't feel like it did before you went into the woods. You're either going to feel where you're anxious and apprehensive, and that means that maybe you walked in on one that you shouldn't have. And you should just go to a different area, or you're going to go in and you're going to feel this all of a sudden peace. And you're going to feel that peace because they connect with the earth, they connect with the energy, and it creates a very peaceful energy. It's like the energy work that I do on my property. I had a friend come here. She drove on the property and she said, I feel like I just drove through a wall. What did you do here? It feels so peaceful. And I'm like, well, thank you. I do energy work. I worked hard to make it peaceful on this land. But you will know. You will absolutely know. And then the other thing that you're going to feel, even if you don't feel like you know how to read energy, your body will react to different energy. Whether you understand why or not, it will. So like, let's say you're out and you're walking around and you're having a nice time and just enjoying the day. All of a sudden the energy changes, but it's not bad. It's just a shift. Your body will react to that. Your body will either tense up, it'll get goosebumps, or it will just feel funny. It's not what it felt like before. It's not a bad feeling. Unless it's a bad one, then you're going to feel that kind of, anxiety. It could be, but if it's a good one, it's just going to feel different to you. And you're going to know that way because the body will react to the energy before our brains will.
Okay. What can we do to attract Sasquatch to us if that is our goal?
You're going to want to talk to them. They want to feel secure with you, just like you do with them. Okay. So you can verbally say, I'm here. I come in peace. I mean no harm to you or your family. I just wish to enjoy the woods with you. But be specific, because you cannot have wiggle room when speaking with them because they don't understand. So you have to be 100% specific. I'm here. I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to enjoy nature. I want to be at peace with you. You can speak to me or have contact with me if you come with peace in your heart. Be specific, because if you're not, it backfires every single time. And then, walk through the woods, enjoy your day, and then go back and sit down in one spot. They like to come to you before you come to them. You know, you
That
can
makes
walk around a little bit and enjoy your day. Certainly. Don't take apart their structures. Don't get them where they feel like they're backed into a corner. But then when you're done with all that, or even while you're out in the woods, find a log, sit down, and just relax and say, I'm here. If you want to have any kind of contact, I mean you no harm. I come in peace. You can approach me if you come in peace as well. Because you want it both ways. A good contact may take you a while to get, but once you establish that relationship, it will last a lifetime. Once they like you, you've got them for life. It's not going anywhere. But you have a negative encounter with them, and you will have nothing but negative encounters thereafter, unless you correct the reason why it was negative.
Okay. When they pick up our energy, is that where they decide you're a positive or negative person?
Yeah, partly. They go by your energy and they read your heart. They literally it's almost like they scan you. They know what's in your heart. You can't fake it, because you can't change your energy. It is what it is. So you may be pretending to be a good person, but you're not. Your energy is going to radiate that you're not a good person. It's like a lie detector test. And that's what they're going to go on.
Okay. So with that being the case, do they know that the majority of us are scared of them?
Yes. And that was a really good question, actually. A lot of times, if they really feel like, you're afraid of them, they'll either stay backed off as though not to frighten you and leave you little signs. Like in your case, Dave, when we were speaking the last time, the subtle signs from them were that they remembered the blue car. And they told me about the blue car. Those are little ways for you to know that you've connected with them, but not frighten you, because it's not a face-to-face encounter. Other ways that they'll do that is they'll visit you in dream state. If they visit you, people think they're having a dream and they're seeing, a Sasquatch in this dream, and it's talking to them or connecting with them. But what's actually happening is the Sasquatch are coming to them in dream state so that they can condition them to accept how they look, how they, act. And it's not only safe for the Sasquatch, but it's safer and easier on us as we adjust to being around them.
So how do we adjust to that if we're not very good at picking up the signs?
It's just one of those things that's a progression. The worst thing you can do is try to push it or force it. Let it happen naturally. If you happen to encounter one, okay, the first thing you want to do, and I hate to sound like a broken record, does that energy that you're feeling, does it feel, frightening? Because it could be they're frightened or you're frightened. They're all empathetic, so they can feel every emotion you have. So let's say you encounter one, stand there quietly, and then if it doesn't do anything and it's just looking at you, you can either stand there at the same time or back away calmly. Tell it, I'm here in peace. I'm not here to hurt you. Most of the time when people encounter them, they're standing there and they're moving between the trees and they're trying to get away from us. That's the normal encounter. Once in a while, one will stop and sit there and stare at you. And it's all right to look back. But when it comes to like the rock throwing, small, tiny pebbles tossed at you or acorns or whatever, that's just their way of saying, hey, we're here. And it's almost like they're trying to make sure that when they have that contact, you're not going to pull a gun on them, or you're not going to do something to try to trap them or hurt them. So they take these little tiny pebbles or acorns and toss them at you, kind of like, okay, now you know we're here. What are you going to do? And they're far enough away to protect themselves. When you get to the medium-sized rocks, that's a warning that you've now gotten too close to them, whether they were hunting or whether the children were there, or it's just you're making them uncomfortable because you're too close. And all you simply do is say, I'm here in peace, back off, and give them space. 9 out of 10 times, that's all they want. If you've ignored that warning and you still persist, or you're trying to follow them, then they get mad and you will get something thrown at you, and they don't miss. Their aim is perfect. So if they're not hitting you, they choose not to hit you. It's a warning.
I believe that, you know, there's just too many incidents of that
Yeah.
happening that it's hard to say, no, that's not right. That's not true, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep. I've had people contact me and say, I have PTSD because they screamed at me. Well, if you're in your home and somebody comes busting through the door and you don't know they're coming, you're going to yell at them to get out of your house. It's the same thing. We have to understand that they don't understand property lines. They understand territories between clans, but they don't understand our property lines. So when we walk out our front door, we're now in theirs. Doesn't matter what our property is or that we pay taxes on it. Their culture is we are out of our front door and now we're in their world. And it's a mutual respect, and it can be done. And they are actively trying right now to connect with people more so than I think I've ever seen it in my lifetime. They want to build that bridge, and the bridge is not a physical bridge. It's a contact between their people and ours. That does not mean that you're going to see them walking down Main Street. They just want to be able to live their lives as they want without fear of being hunted down or, chased all the time. They want us to live ours and them to do theirs. And if we run into each other, it's a peaceful encounter. That's their goal. So they're contacting people more and more than I've ever seen it in my lifetime. The braids are becoming even more intense. The braids, the middle strand is supposed, according to what they've said and what we've learned, the 3 strands of a braid, the middle strand means God. The other 2 strands are the coming together of the people. And that's why they do the braiding. And Harriet McFeely in Nebraska, she has a book that she put out. She's working on book 2. I highly recommend it. She's done a complete study on these braids. And what they've done is amazing. They're braiding flags. They take the flags, they rip them into strips, and they literally braid them. And she's got an entire collection of them now. I've asked the Sasquatch there if it was them, certain ones, not all of them, of course, but certain ones, and it is. And because the flag represents us and our place here, and this is why they've chosen to do that. And it's been extraordinary, the information she's gotten on it.
I want to ask you one more question before I have to say goodnight to you. And that is the curiosity. The curiosity, Robin, that these creatures have. Whether you're at a campfire or whether you have friends sitting on a patio, whether you're fishing in a lake, whatever. It seems like they are very curious to what humans are doing. Why is that?
Well, it's really kind of hysterical because we're curious about them and we're running all over trying to find them while they're running all over trying to find us. They want to know about us just as badly as we want to know about them. Now, I was working with somebody that had contacted me, I think it was yesterday, and he just had some things that were going on and wanted to know if I could explain what it meant to him because he was getting contact. And we were talking, and I was actually sitting on my bed in my room, and I happened to look out the window, and there was one that did a belly crawl, a black one that just shot 90 miles an hour across my front yard on its belly, all the way over to the bushes. And it was in the bushes. I saw the bushes getting moved around a little bit, and then he did a belly crawl back to the other side. What that was all about, God only knows. I mean, nobody was out there. Everybody was in the house. It was just random. But they are curious about us. They want to know about us. They want to know about our culture. But they also want our people to know about their culture. And, I stayed quiet for well over 45 years. I'm 58 years old. Other than go to Russia and do a small conference here and there, I have stayed quiet because there was no reason to come forward. They were the ones that pushed me to come forward about 4 years ago. And it was strictly to give information about their culture. And when they are tired of me talking about it, I'm done. I'll be off air because this is their information, not mine. They want people to understand their way of life, how they communicate, what they do. There's good ones and bad ones, but they just want to be able to live on this planet copacetically with us.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't
I
either.
really- That's wicked.
But they do
Well-
like you very much. And I think at some
Oh.
point you'll get your visual, and they
Yeah.
like the energy that you radiate. You have a very pure heart. Like your heart, it's honest. Like the love that you feel for them, it's pure. It's not with ulterior motives or anything else. And they know that. Like the one that watches outside your window when you do your show, that played with the wires on the computer at that time. He hangs out there all the time.
You know, it's funny because it's only when I'm in the forest do I ever get their energy.
Mm-hmm.
Only in the forest.
But
And
you're learning.
looking toward. True. But I don't know if I trust that yet. I haven't figured
see,
that part out yet.
That's okay. That's 100% okay. Everybody feels like they're just supposed to go out there and just know all this, and it all happens. And I'd love to say it works that way, but the truth of the matter is it doesn't. It's baby steps. It's a progression, and it can take a lot more time than what we really want to give it. But no matter how fast we want it to happen, it's going to happen as they want it to. It's a progression. I think you're going to be surprised. You know, like if you were to fast forward even 4 or 5 years from now, what you're going to see and what you're going to learn in that time span would literally blow your mind right now. We may think we're ready for certain things, but that doesn't mean we are.
That I agree with.
You know, I mean, really. And they know better. Believe it or not, they know better than we do on this.
Well, Robin, do me a favor. Oh, excuse me. Do me a favor and let everybody know where they can find more information on you.
You can email me. My email is RLYNNE and then a period, because if you don't put the period in, I don't get it. FORESTPEOPLE@gmail.com. And I always respond to everybody. Or you can find me on Facebook under Robin Haynes McCrae.
Wonderful, Robin. Thank you. And we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Spreaker, LGAP, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. Soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yeah, we've got room for them too. Good night. Great job, Robin. Great job.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, questions and answers are always fun.
Oh, the whole curiosity thing. It's like, I'm allowed to be curious, but you're not. You know, stay
Yeah.
away from me. They're almost acting like cats.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I always laugh because I always tell everybody, you know, well, we're out there looking for them. They're in here looking for us. And you actually get more action when you go out there, but you don't go all the way out there, like just enough so they know that you're there. and then you pull back a little and kind of sit there, and you actually get more action because you get their attention, but you're not chasing them through the woods. So they turn around and they have to come and check you out.
See, and that's something that I very much believed. Okay. And you just kind of confirmed that for me.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, I listen to a lot of where you got to go 10, 15 miles off the trail and up a mountainside and down the other side. And,
Yeah.
you know, you have to take that fork in the road and that fork in the road and take, you know, the Nomad Deer Trail Highway heading south on the 225. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. When
It is.
I don't understand, you know, I don't understand why you need to do that when you could do the same thing, you know, 100 feet off of a gravel road.
Yeah. The thing is they feel more secure with them coming up to you. So it's like, go out where you think that they might be at and just sit and talk and laugh. Everything for them is energy based and vibrational based. So when you are out there and you're laughing, I mean, laughter raises your energy and your vibration quicker than anything does. So when you're out there and you're laughing and you're talking or playing music, they love music. Buy one of those Tibetan singing bowls. They love it. I was up in Nebraska and played that, and 3 of them stepped right out of the trees so that I could see them. You know, they love music. My daughter used to sit out on a blanket and play her clarinet for them, and they would just come in droves. But, you know, go out there and let them come to you. It makes them feel like they have a little bit more control as far as a safety thing. And if you're going to go out in the woods, if you go out and you're
like heavy metal,
well, do it softer. You know, if it's too loud and pounding, it's going to frighten them. You know, now they like the drums. They like music. They like upbeat things. That's their whole thing, because the upbeat stuff raises the energy and vibration.
Excuse me. I know, but they got to learn the love of the Iron Maiden and Pantera, and, you know, somebody's got to introduce it to them.
Yeah, just do it where you're not playing it so it's blaring, where they have super sensitive ears because they can hear so well. So adjust your volume for that. You don't want it real low, but you don't want a heavy metal to be super, super loud. And I've seen
a lot of people over time, Robin, who have used hunting animal in distress calls.
Terrible, just terrible. I feel like, and this is just me personally, I'm not knocking other researchers, but when they do that, it's basically baiting them. It's a lie. It's not what it is. And they will eventually know that. And that's going to take away from having that positive encounter. You'll get an encounter and they may show up, but it's not building the relationship with them. That's what it's about. It's not about who can get them in the quickest. You know, I know people that will do what they have to piss them off, because then they'll get an encounter. And I'm like, do you understand that you're getting a negative encounter that's leading them to distrust you? When you do the distressed animal calls, they think it's a distressed animal, and they come in and it's not. And basically in their mind, you lied to them. I mean, that's not what I think anybody would want to build a relationship on. You know, in the whoop calls, everybody does the whoop calls. I think I've done them twice out of 58 years. And it was for fun because I was hanging out with some people that were doing them, but we don't know what each call means. So when they use that as a form of communication, they aren't just out there doing it for fun. We don't know what we're saying when we do it. We have no business doing it. That's their language. That's for them to interact with each other. You know, I used to go outside. When I would get out there, if I didn't think they were outside yet, I had a certain whistle that I did that they knew was me. And it got to the point where I did that whistle and you could hear them come barreling through the woods like freight trains, because that was my whistle. I wasn't trying to imitate what they were saying because I didn't know what it meant. And I think that's just something we have to be mindful of when we're doing noises to bring them in.
how come we don't get more reports of samurai chatter?
Do you know, it depends on the clan which ones use it. It really does. Different areas have different clans. Some they use it more. I've heard it. I don't hear it a lot. You know, I have heard it, but not a lot. I think it just depends on the clans and the locations that they have and which ones are using it. I think it's really cool when you hear it.
I've only heard it the once. Would love to hear it again.
Yeah,
'Cause
I've
now
only heard the samurai 2 or 3 times, and it, you know, it just depends on that clan, what that intent is, what they're meaning with it. But it's not, you know, they aren't all going to do anything. They're all so individualized.
No, I can appreciate that and agree with what you're saying there. You know, but you know, if I would have known the first time, I wish it would have clicked in my head that first
Yeah.
time it. You
But
know,
you know, everything with them is like the first time every time. I've seen them countless times, and it's still like the first time every single time. Like when that one did the belly crawl across the yard yesterday. I was like, oh my God. So I went and I got Pat, and I'm like, have you looked out the front window? Did you see that? And all I saw was the head and the butt as it went skirting across on its belly. And he's like, no, I was in the other room. I'm like, oh my God, they just did it across the yard. I went and I sat back down, and it zoomed back, went back and forth like 3 times. I don't know what it was trying to do, but it was having a good time.
Okay, I have a question for you. One of my clients during my daytime job, probably a couple of years ago now, was way in the backwoods of our town, like an hour away.
Mm-hmm.
He lives about an hour out of town into the bushes. Anyways, he's riding his Harley back home. And it's a 2-lane road, pretty wide 2-lane road, yellow stripe down the middle. And he watches this thing come out of the ditch. He doesn't know what it was. Okay. What he said was it was on all fours,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't look like a bear. In his area, I mean, people around here are bear aware. Okay. Yeah. We're in bear aware season right now. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if one day, you know, before I get my windows switched over, it wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden a bear nose came through here.
It's that time of year.
Yeah. And it just wouldn't surprise me. But that being said, you know, I've lost my train of thought. Oh, this creature that he saw, he explained it as it was on all fours. The legs were very muscular, but they weren't like bear legs.
Right.
He said it was dark out. His biggest regret was that his GoPro was being covered by his front handlebar saddlebag. That pissed him off. But it was crawling on all fours, and by time the butt end got out of the ditch, its face and head were already about a foot across to 2 feet across that line.
Yeah, they can move just as fast on all fours as they can on 2 legs. And there's a lot of times when they're trying to really quickly go, you know, they'll do that. We've seen them do that multiple times. My one son did. He was like, he knew which ones were out in the woods that night. And we went to go pull in the driveway. We had gotten home late, and he watched it, and he just went right across on all fours. It's amazing how quickly they can move on all fours. You would not believe, between the all fours, the belly crawl, and the upright, they are lightning speed and efficient always. And there's a lot of people that have seen them do that. Now, When I was in Michigan, I was going down this one road that was right by my house, and a car was in front of me, and it hit the brakes, and you couldn't see anything. It was daylight, and he hit the brakes, and he acted like he hit something. And when he did it, it was actually a younger Bigfoot. It was an adolescent that he hit. And I don't think he realized he had even hit anything until, he felt the car lurch where he had hit him. And he did the drop and roll thing and uncloaked when he did it. And so you could see him in physical form. And he took off on all fours, just lickety split. And then as he hit the woods, he got up on two legs and took off. But you couldn't see him crossing the road because he was cloaked. Like when he got hit, he was cloaked at the time. And I think it just shocked him enough where that's why he uncloaked when he did.
Right. Sorry, I just had to type something as I'm editing here.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh. Do we have any questions for Robin? There's still 170 people listening, or 167.
Yeah,
Most shows.
We can do a few questions.
All right. Let's see. Any questions? Witchy is asking, and Holly, what do you mean by cloaking, and how do they cloak?
Okay, cloaking, there's two ways to do it. There's what they call the cloaking and the shimmer. The shimmer looks like what you saw in like the Predator movie, where it's like that gelled water effect. And cloaking is they are 100% transparent. You cannot see them at all. And we have asked them, multiple individuals, how they do it, and they call it they bend light. That's how they do it. Now, in order for them to bend that light, I got bit by a mosquito on my nose. Sorry, guys. In order for them to bend that light, they raise their vibration, and it's a vibrational thing that does it. And they're able to bend the light around them, so they're still there. You just can't see them anymore. So the gel effect is the shimmer, but the complete, where you don't know they're there at all, is considered cloaking. And I've actually had them come up to me, and they do what they call counting coup, and they come up and they touch you while they're cloaked. It's definitely unique.
Robin, is that through the design of their hair? Because I'm assuming that their hair must be a lot like deer or cattle hair, where it's hollow.
Yeah, it is. And there's been a lot of talk that it's because of that they can do it. From what they've said to me, they've not mentioned anything about the hair, but do I think that it has something to do with it? Yes, I do. I think that it's a combination of when they raise that vibration and they put that energy like a shield around them, that hair that's hollow on the inside, it just makes it easier for it to become completely transparent. So I think that plays into it. But when you ask them what they're doing, they don't talk about their hair. They just say it's bending light and that it's done by changing their vibration. But I do believe in my heart that because the hair is the way it is, that plays a big part in it.
All right. Let's see what else we got here for you. Someone on Facebook is asking, Robin, have you been able to take pictures of them? Can you see the chat room?
I can. Sometimes I can, but this time I can't.
Okay. If you go, you're on your phone, right?
No, I'm actually on my tablet.
Oh, okay. All right. I got a bunch of questions here for you, and I just got to go to the bathroom here. Start off with Facebook user. Robin, have you been able to take any pictures of them? And I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I have multiple pictures of them. I wish I could find a way to put them up on the show because I'd be more than happy to forward them to Dave. I don't think, everybody talks about the blurry pictures and that, and I don't think they're the worst pictures out there. I think that they're relatively good considering the subject matter. A lot of people like them. I have other people that say, they're blurry. Part of it is I've taken them with my cell phone. So when you're looking at them on the cell phone, the pixels are appropriate and they pop right out. There's no way you can't see them. But like when I did the conference in Nebraska, it was put on a large screen and it pixelates, and then, people get real hateful. But for the most part, I think they're pretty good photos. And I will talk to Dave and see if there's a way we can get some up, because I'm more than happy to send it to them. I have pictures of them. I have one picture of a baby dogman, and I have another one that's a dogman that isn't the best, but it is there. I have a cat person. I have a couple of pictures of an ET. I have a really phenomenal photo of a UFO and a video of it that my son-in-law took it on my front porch. I also have what I really think is an extraordinary photo. It was taken with our security cameras, and there's a triangular shaped craft just outside my garage, and underneath of it is a portal that's opened with a head coming out. So yeah, I have a lot of photos, a lot of photos. Some that I've taken in Michigan, some that I've taken here in South Carolina, but I definitely have them. I have one that Igor Borsteff is in, and was unaware that while he was having his photo taken, there was actually a Bigfoot behind him in the tree line photobombing him. So he didn't even know he was there. And so I have that, and then I cropped out Igor so that it was easier just to focus on him. So I have that one. I have another one where I was standing in the woods, and we found that if you take a picture of me in the woods, they generally pop out in the background. So I have that one. It has a mom, and what we thought was just one baby in front of her, but then once we examined the picture and blew it up a little bit, we realized that there's actually a baby with its head laying on top of hers, plus the face of the other baby in front of her. So yeah, there are ways to get photos of them if you just simply go outside with your camera and take random photos. If they are cloaked and you're taking random photos, they generally will pop up. Blow up your, the photo and look around, and you generally, if they're there, they'll show up. The other thing is that don't center, if you do see one, don't make them the center of the photo. When you do that, they all radiate a certain energy and a very high frequency. And so it works like a shield around them, and that's why all the photos are blurry. They got very lucky with Patty. They can drop that shield down anytime they want. And they can withdraw some of the energy. Like if you are out there a lot with them and you have that energy on you all the time, it can cause health issues, not because they're trying to hurt you, but because it's just part of the energy that they radiate. And so you can ask them to draw it back. So when you go to do a photo, if you don't put them in the center frame, put them off to the right or left side or top or bottom or whatever. Just don't make them the center focal point. When you make them the center focal point, it blurs the camera. So it makes it a little bit harder. But yeah, we've gotten, I think, quite a few photos of them out there. I do have one that I've had for years, and it's actually a female with a baby. She's holding the baby out front, and you can see the outline of her, and you can see her eyes, and you can see the red shape of the baby, but then you can also see right through her. So she's right in the middle of cloaking. So yeah, it's crazy. But I will talk to Dave and see if there's a way to put them up. I can't promise what they're going to look like because I don't know how it'll pixelate when he does it. But I will find out as soon as he gets back and ask him if there's a way to do that. And if there is, I have no problem with him putting up for everybody. It's not a problem for me at all. So hopefully he'll be back in a couple minutes and we can get some more questions answered and see what else we can dig up. But yeah, you can get photos. It's just, if you're out there hunting them down with the camera, it doesn't, not that you can't, but it's really hard. Just go out and take random pictures. All my pictures to begin with were taken at wherever I lived at. I think there's one that we got in the Cumberland Mountains of one standing behind a tree, and you can see his body sticking out and you can see his face between the V shape in the tree. Other than that, all of them, even the portals, because I have pictures of portals, all of those were taken at my house. The UFO video, Duke also had him on his show, and the video was just incredible. We sent it, my son-in-law sent it to MUFON. MUFON listed it as a class 1 sighting and that it was not terrestrial, meaning it was not from this planet. They had checked the airwaves and stuff, and there was nothing of ours in the sky that night. They were just thrilled with it. And then I took the footage and I screen captured while it was playing some of the stills so that we could look at it that way. So those are some other ones that we, I'm more than happy to share with Dave for you guys if he wants to do it. And if there's a way to do it, I don't know how, he's got it on StreamYard and I'm not sure how that all works. I just go on the shows. I have no idea how they run them. So if we can do it, I'm all for it. Give you guys something to look at. Like I said, all I ask is be kind. Not everybody sees the same thing. I don't feel they're blob squatches, and most people that see them don't, but everybody's different. As your mind is ready to accept what's out there, you see things a little bit different. I need to see if I can find on my phone a way to get the questions. Oh, Dave's back. I don't have to worry about it.
For you.
Dave, question for you. If I were to send you photos, is there a way that you can put them up? I mean, not tonight. We could do it for Thursday, but is there a way that you could put them up?
Yeah, just send them to me on Facebook Messenger.
Okay. I will do that tonight and tomorrow. I will send you a bunch of them. I have no problem with everybody looking at them. All I ask is that if you don't see what everybody else says or sees, just be kind. Scroll on by if you don't like it. I'm fine with that. Just, let's be kind to each other.
Always. Let me just get this started.
Yeah, I've never had anybody in your chat ever be nasty at all. So I've been really lucky with that.
Raz is asking if you got empirical evidence, would you testify?
Absolutely. Let me clarify that. If I thought it was something that would be good for the Sasquatch, absolutely, in a heartbeat. If it was something that I felt that they could use to hurt them, not a chance in this world would I testify.
Sovereign is asking, do you think they sold you out and had you abducted?
I don't think no, actually the Bigfoots have tried to protect me from the abductions and have been able to stop it multiple times. It doesn't mean they've been able to stop it all the time. I've been being abducted since before I was 4. The last time was a couple months ago. So, but they have tried numerous times and they have stopped them at times. So no, I don't think that at all.
Yeah, I don't think there's any tie between the Sasquatch and aliens when it comes to abduction. John is asking, can we cloak ourselves the same way? Is this an ability we have forgotten?
I personally think that it is. You have to have a high enough vibrational force to be able to do it. And I have heard certain people say that they've been able to make it happen. I have no reason to believe that isn't true. I think that we have a lot of abilities that we have been taught don't exist. And so therefore we have forgotten them. So as far as that goes, I would say, yes, we could. You've got to get your vibration up high enough to do it.
Okay, let's go to Twitch where Noob Smurf is asking, is there a way to talk to them via astral projection or something?
Yeah, I've astral projected. The one time I had somebody that was actually in an area that some of the Bigfoot and Dogmen and ETs that were there were not good. And he called me in the middle of the night and he was in trouble. And I've actually done that where I've astral projected there. And it was quite comical because after it was over, he was like, I saw you and this is what you were wearing. And he absolutely nailed it. So I have every reason to believe that it worked. And I was able to get them to leave him alone. So yeah, I think so.
Let's go to Mike. What was the most recent sighting you have had? Have you ever had an encounter with a family of Sasquatch?
Yes, I have. There was the mother, the female, the male, and a little girl that was a child. And I was actually, they didn't take me. I was at home, and all of a sudden I had this intense feeling I had to go out in the woods. And I went like 3 miles into the woods, like I knew where I was going, even when I didn't. And it took, these temporary shelters are just that, temporary. That's not where they actually live. That's a whole different ballgame. And I was actually taken where they live at. And there was a family there that I interacted with. inside the nesting area before I went back home. And then I had a female bring her baby up to me when I was living in Michigan. And here we have a male and a female and a child. And I have a picture of him, and he's got his hand over his face like this. So that's another one I'll send to you, Dave. His name is Zerky. And they were in my front yard playing almost every night for a very long time when he was littler.
Oh, really? So they pretty much know that, like, your home, your property is a pretty safe place.
Yeah, we had back about 3 or 4 years ago, about 4 years ago now, my husband had bought me a Patagonian Cavy, which is like the 3rd largest rodent in the world. I'd always wanted one. And I was going to pick her up, and I went out my driveway, and as I got in the car, somebody was mind speaking, and they kept saying, hurry, 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 there's a man here and he has a gun. And I said, okay, who are you? What are you? And where are you? So they showed me a picture of themselves, and they said, go by the water, go to the water. Well, we have a swampy little river area down the road for me. So I drove down that way, and there was 3 men with guns. And there was a very large blonde colored male Bigfoot that was walking through the back of the swamp. And I told him, I said, go to the house. You know, Pat's at the house. He's not going to let anybody on the property to look for you. Just go to the house. And he did. He was here for about a week until he felt he was safe. And he finally left. You know, he was scared to death, but they couldn't touch him. They couldn't get to him because, you know, we don't allow anybody back there or on the property. And the people behind me, it's just nothing but woods. It's private property. And the snakes are so thick back there, nobody's dumb enough to go back there anyway. And then the following week, my neighbor's grandson has a friend that lives up the road, and he saw the same male walk through his backyard. But yeah, they feel pretty safe here. I've had them come here when they're sick, when they're injured, you know, when they're scared. This is a safety zone. And I have all these different cryptids, and I have various ETs and things, but everybody gets along. I don't have wars in my house at all. They're all really peaceful about it.
Okay. There was a question here. Raz is asking, can you tell us about the cat person?
The cat person, it was really funny because I had talked to them before, even when I was in Michigan, but I had not gotten a visual. And I was out on my porch, and I was just telling you guys about the random pictures. You never know what's going to be in it. And I was taking all these random pictures of the front, where the front yard is, and across the dirt little road and into the woods there, because I could feel all kinds of different energies. It was just really bizarre. There's so many different things. It was mind blowing. So I took random pictures, and she just showed up on the camera, and I asked her what she was doing. She said her name was Amula. And you can see she doesn't have the lion head. She's female, so she has more of the regular domesticated cat head. And you can see that quite well. The baby that she had with her is, and again, these are photos I'll send to Dave. It's very difficult to see the baby. The baby is down low, and she actually looks like she's got a raccoon sitting on her shoulder. It's really bizarre. But you can very easily see the cat-shaped head. Very calm. There's been 3 or 4 that I've talked to in my lifetime, and all of them were the same way. Very independent. They didn't rely on anybody, and they were just fine by themselves. You know, but kind. I've never had a problem with any of them at all. They just do their own thing. They really do. They do their own thing, and they don't bother anybody. The ones I've talked to and seen don't appear to cause any grief at all.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. We're going to start winding this down. A couple more questions. Low Pro is asking, do they speak or understand English or other human languages?
The Sasquatch?
Yeah.
Or the cat people? Okay. Yes, they have their own language, but they also can speak our language. They can speak any language where they're living at that they need to. The ones in Russia, when I was there in Siberia, they would try to talk to me in Russian, and I was like, guys, I can't do it. And they would switch to English without even batting an eye.
Some on that spiritual level that they can do that.
Yeah, they really can. But they have their own language, and they talk very quickly, and they have a much bigger voice range than us as far as going really high or really low. And when it's low, it's very guttural. We talk from the throat, theirs comes out of the clavicle, so you get more of a gurgled noise with it, but they have a wider range as far as the pitches than we do.
Very cool. Very cool. A couple more. Sovereign is asking, what names do Sasquatch usually pick? I've heard Arabic sounding names before.
Do you know what? I'm not going to be honest with you and tell you, I don't find that there's any certain language. I know a lot of people say they use Sanskrit. Some people say, regular English. I've heard before Arabic. Their names are really, really different. Like the other day there was one called Rufflix, or it wasn't Reflux. It was like Rufflix or whatever. I mean, just odd names to us, which are very normal for them. I always thought that they would have more of an Indian, Native American type name, but it depends on the clan. I've seen such a wide variety of it. It's just amazing. I normally, when they give me their names, I make them put the letters in my head, because if not, I can't understand what they're saying.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, let's go to Jenny, who is asking, how does Bigfoot feel about other beings?
It depends on which ones. There's certain ETs that they're pretty comfortable with, but then there's others that are actually, they come to this planet to capture the Bigfoots and kill them. And of course, they aren't going to like that. They tend to, as long as they are, nurturing the earth and they're being respectful of the earth, I find they all seem to just do their own thing. Like, I really feel like we need to take a lesson from them, because there's not a lot of fighting unless, with different personalities, just like you might fight with your neighbor over something. For the most part, they're all hanging out. Like, all of my pictures that have all these various things in it were, again, taken at my home. These are not where I went to the territory for this, that, or whatever. It's just here. And I tend to think that they actually do pretty well. There are certain places where the Bigfoot and the Dogman don't like being together. And in those areas, they'll separate and do their own thing. Every place I've ever lived, they've gotten along well together. And it's the same thing. Like, I have pictures, and again, these I'll send, dimensionals and, elementals, ETs, whatever. And I have this one that's a portal opened up, and it has this huge, huge head coming out of it. And it just looks like a Dogman type head, but it works here. It worked at my old house. It's worked at every house I've ever lived in. They just seem peaceful when they're here. Anybody that tries to come in that isn't here in peace, they will pelt with rocks until they're out of here.
Bastards. Pelt them with rocks. All right. Well, Robin, I'm going to say goodnight to you, because I am all done on the downloading here. Unfortunately, we got you for the short shift on Thursday due to the Dave 101, but I love you, and thank you so much. Absolutely. I would appreciate that. And
thank you so much for having me.
We'll get the photos. Anytime you want to come on the air, you just tell me. Anytime. Doors open for you.
Oh, well, I love you guys.
All right. Yeah, we love you too. All right, everyone. Tomorrow night on the show, it's Merle. It's Merlicious time. It's Lordy Merle is 40 time. Goes to the Great White North with Merle. We'll see you all tomorrow night. Thank you, Cat Chaser, Vaughn, Scrub-a-Dub-Dub, Lala, Bob, Kira, and Dennis for the super chats. On that note, I am off to bed, and Robin's going to go play with the Sasquatch. Good night, everybody.
Take care.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.